Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
In silence, with blindness, through darkness, I'll walk with you. When time's up, when they find us, I promise I'll be with you. I signed up and I've made my mind up. I'll stick with you, won't slow down, make no doubt. I'll hold out right here with you. Forgotten, I'm calling in the garden. I wait for you on eggshells in bad health, gates of hell. I'll walk right through. Don't blame me, no maybes. Betray me and I'll come for you. Until then, I'm all in. Just calling, I'll run to you. I won't get up. I will stand up. Hey, I'll die for, hey, I'll fight for you, for you, for you. I won't get up. I will stand up. Hey, I'll die for you, my life for you, yeah, for you. Put all my hope in you. What is a man supposed to do? Hunger in my eyes, I'll stand up close to you. Through the pain, through the blood, through the sweat, through the mud. Get a word and I'm suiting up. There ain't nothing they can do with us. Had it all, thought I knew enough. Take my words and I chew them up. Till I'm in my coffin and rotting, just dead and forgotten. I'm waiting and watching. You know that I ain't never stopping, don't you? I never let them come and stop the motive. Until it's over, man, adopt some motive. Never gotta look over your shoulder. And even when the world is getting colder, I'ma be the one to come and warm it over. I'll never, forever, one with the cold with the storm with the I won't get up.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap behind enemy lines on YouTube for now, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is my co-host and producer, Fox Therese. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, and YouTube is autoplaying.
That's nice of that.
Yes. Not our
YouTube,
stuff.
Always trying to...
Definitely not all playing our stuff.
Yeah. Definitely not any conservative media. Maybe Tucker. Might give us Tucker.
Maybe.
or Greg Gutfeld. That's another one that does get recommended because he's
Really?
coward enough. Yeah.
I get a lot
Fi.
of what's that British guy that Crowder's always hating on? He's on. Was it? God, what the hell's his name? You know who I'm talking about?
I don't know, because if you're British, not really a person.
No, but really, do you know who I'm talking about?
I know. I don't know his name.
God damn it.
Yeah.
That's how important he is.
Piers Morgan.
That's no. The guy who does the 20-minute segments where he just like makes shit up. I know why that was really specific for like liberal media people.
Yeah, you gotta narrow it down a little more.
Yeah, no, it's not Piers Morgan, not Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert's not English.
Thanks, Whiteline.
Good job. We are starting off to an amazing start. We you know what the show needs, Dyer. We don't need to just build back the show better. We need to build it back better.
Yes. But this show will continue to survive as long as you guys keep supporting us. Thank you for that. This is all your fault. So please like, share, subscribe. It's very much appreciated. Special thank you to all of our financial sponsors, including but not limited to Kaylet, Orimane, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, who's female, so I hear, the White Line, and AU. That's
Addis Looper. Adder Lupus or Adder Lupin? Adder Lupus. That's what it is. Thanks.
Fixed. And also thank you very much to Timberwolf. So our first funny comment evolved a little bit to a small story. So let's play this clip.
When I became vice president, one of the Capitol Hill newspapers estimated that I had taken more than 7,000 round trips in Amtrak over my career. I think that's an exaggeration. And I'm going to rely on those two conductors that Mr. Weaver will remember. One of them was a guy named Angelo Negri. And Angelo, there was an article, I guess my fourth or fifth year as vice president, saying Biden travels 1,300,000 miles on Air Force One. And I used to, the Secret Service didn't like it, but I used to like to take the train home. My mom was sick, and I'd try to come home almost every weekend as vice president to see her. And I was getting on the train, and Angelo Negri came up to me and goes, "Joey, baby!" And he grabbed my cheek, started to squeeze it like he always did. And I thought he was going to get shot. I'm serious. And I said, no, he's a friend. He said, "Joey, what's the big deal? 1,200,000, 300,000 miles on Air Force Two. You know how many miles you travel on Amtrak?" I said, "No, Ange, I don't know." And he gave me the calculation, and he said, "You travel 1,515,000 miles on Amtrak." So the fact is, I probably take Ange's word before I took the word of what the article said. But the point is, in the process, as
even Biden doesn't trust the fake news.
Conductor Weaver will tell you, Amtrak became my family. I literally every single day that I was in the United States Senate got either the 728, it became the 732, and got home on. If I got lucky, I got the Metro that left. The last one left at 6. So if you think about it, when I was vice president with Barack, he allowed me to put together a budget for Amtrak. And it had money for high-speed rail at 200 miles an hour from Charlotte, another line.
Okay, that's enough about that. So the moral of that story.
The section where he talks about this. Sorry, that's the next video. Biden says in this clip that a certain conductor congratulated him for reaching 1.5 million miles traveled on Amtrak while he was on a trip to visit his sick mother. He said this happened on his fourth or fifth year as president, which would be either 2014 or 2015, at which time the conductor he named had been retired for 20 years and died that year, and his mother had passed away before that point in 2010. The conductor who could not have been there, and Biden couldn't have been visiting his sick mother because his sick mother was dead.
Wow, that's a pretty big fucking hole in that story. 2 of them.
So
there couldn't possibly be any more giant gaping holes in that story, is there?
Surely not.
Surely not. I mean, you're talking about a person who was dead at the time and couldn't possibly have worked there at that time, and also visiting his mother who was also dead. Like, those are pretty big holes. The only hole that's bigger than that I can possibly imagine is if somebody was listening to Snoop Dogg 7 years prior to his track being out.
Kamala Harris.
Oh no.
So, just to reiterate, Biden's mother, who he said he was going to visit in 2014 or 2015, was already dead in 2010. The conductor, who apparently congratulated him, was dead and retired for 20 years.
Now, what is the probability that Joe Biden saw the conductor? It's like, Joe Biden, are you seeing the conductor right now?
He saw someone who was like the same skin color of the conductor and just assumed because they're all the same person to him.
Joe Biden's been in Congress for so long that his hallucinations are other government employees.
He needs a better imagination. So he also, just as a side note, compared his flight hours on Air Force One to his trips on Amtrak. The vice president, when he's flying just by himself, not with the president, is actually flying on Air Force 2. It's the same plane as Air Force 1, but it's got a different call sign when it's just transporting him. And I know that must not matter to you guys, but it's a terminology he, as the vice president, should be aware of because Air Force 2 refers to him.
Tomato, tomato, classified, not classified. You know, it's all very confusing, Dyer. It's all very, very confusing.
He's using the wrong terminology for his office. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah. So, you know, I wonder. Just side note here. I'm curious if maybe in the future they develop time travel, and a bunch of fucking idiots got their hands on it, and they came back in time, being Joe and Kamala and a few other Democrats, and they knew just enough to get their dumbasses into power. But actually, clearly we see what the results of that are, because maybe in their time, you know, being able to listen to a rap track 7 years before it comes out, that's no big deal because of time travel. Being able to talk to your dead mother 5 years after she died, maybe that's no big deal either. And they just, like, when they came back in time, they forgot that we don't have time travel in this era, and so they're getting confused on their wheres and whens.
Well, actually, I think that the real story here is that Joe Biden is actually black because he's a time wizard. And he also, without explaining why he's an authority on who is and is not black, because remember, if you don't vote for him,
God,
you ain't black.
I wish you'd sent me with the side effects. I wish you'd sent me the "You Ain't Black" one. You need to put that one on the list.
Okay, I'll do it.
I definitely would have played that just now.
I gave you 5 sound bites for today. Jeez.
And they're not enough. I need more. All right, so let's see here. So more little holes in the story. So in 2017, CNN interviewed Biden and his wife Jill. Oh, come on, Dyer. That is so rude. She is a doctor. She is such a doctor that she could perform surgery on Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, she's as much of a doctor as he is a president.
I don't know.
Like, they have the title, they don't do the
I don't think that there was questions about whether or not the signatures on her diploma were, you know, made by illegal immigrants or not. So she might be more of a doctor.
No, it's pretty apt analogy. They both have the title, they don't do the job.
Okay, so in 2017, CNN interviewed Biden and the esteemed doctor, the kind of doctor that couldn't help you if you were choking on something, Jill Biden.
Because she wouldn't do it for moral grounds. She just hates you.
Amtrak. They interviewed them on Amtrak after he left the White House. Then Joe Biden said that Amtrak had calculated that he had made 8,200 round trips, totaling more than 2 million miles. Biden said he made the 259-mile round trip an average of 217 days a year. That is a lot. Because I think that you can't. I think that 259 miles in a day is pushing it on a train. I could be wrong. I don't do a lot of train travel, but that seems to be pushing it. But I don't think that he was popping back and forth to Delaware every night.
Amtrak isn't high-speed rail, right?
No, I mean you're talking about capping out at like maybe 60, 70 miles an hour. So
that is.
So you're talking about doing round trip. So you're talking about maybe 3 hours there, maybe 3 hours back. I don't think that he was doing that because like 217 days a year, like that's like going to work. Like that's like the number of weekdays. Like it's a little bit less, but that's approximately the number of weekdays that like you would be going to work, especially if you're working in fucking Congress because they only work like half the year. But like I do not believe that he was going back and forth essentially every weekday. So does that calculation, does that equal out to
Well,
to the right
1.5 million. Actually, believe it or not, because how numbers work. You know,
oh no, that's really wait. How numbers work, Dyer? You fucking racist.
I'm sure that,
you
like,
and your white numbers.
I didn't think to write this down in the script, but I just wanted to make sure I did. I just did it now. Wanted to foot something because I thought it was fairly obvious that 259 times 217 did not equal 1.5 million. But just to clarify, it only equals 56,200.
I want to do this math live, and everybody on the screen right now can watch my computer. It pulled up the calculator, and it is. It just took it like 60 seconds to load in the calculator because it's struggling with Streamlabs right now. It's like, I do not have enough energy to calculate two numbers. I am busy with Streamlabs. Okay, so let's do the math here. So 259 miles. Let's give it a generous 70 miles an hour because you know that of all the Amtrak stretches that are probably
Nazi fags.
How dare you?
Jews in the
Why would you do that?
Thank you, Slowpoke, for triggering our new sound effect. He says, I am not a medical doctor. I have a doctorate in woos, so I cannot give you fun pills. I can diagnose you with momigism. I still don't know what that is. I don't want to know.
Momigism.
Anyways, so yeah, so you know that like Amtrak tracks are like pretty awful, and that's why they crash a lot. But like of the parts of the track that are probably pristine is the ones that connect into DC, because you know that's what Congress exists to do, is to protect the Capitol. Anyway, so let's assume that they can hit 70 miles an hour. So 256 miles, let's divide that out by 70 miles an hour. So like about 3.7 hours. You probably got some extra stops in there, so we'll just round that up to 4. So you're done about 2 hours. So I don't think that Joe Biden was doing 2 hours to work and then 2 hours back to work every day. I just do not believe that at all. I mean, that's just not reality. But let's look at how many miles that is in a year. So let's see if Dyer's right. So 217 days times 259 miles. Dyer was right. It was 56,203 miles. Now, how many years at that rate would it take to get to 1 million miles? So let's do 1 million. Divide that by 5. What is it? 56,203. It would take
they estimated 1.5 million.
Okay, so it would take him 17 years. Okay, so I think okay, so I see where they're getting these numbers from. So if he was in there for 30 years, which is an absurdly long amount of time. I can see where they're getting up to like the million and a half, maybe up to 2 million. Okay, so if he was traveling back and forth every day of the congressional calendar, sure. I don't think he was traveling back and forth every day of the congressional calendar, but what do I know? I mean, it's not like Joe Biden got anything done for the 45 years he was in Congress.
I mean, that would explain him not getting any work.
Do we just figure out Biden's history? Is this why Biden's never gotten anything done? Because he's been like riding the fucking train his entire life.
Hey, Biden, we need you for a vote. Okay, I'll be there in like how many hours?
Yeah, he's like, I just really love choo-choo trains. Like that's why I want to get elected, so I can just ride back and forth on the train.
He's like sniffing all the hair of all the girls inside the train.
Well, okay, so do you know? So did you hear the story that Wilkow was telling this week? Did you hear about this? About the Amtrak?
Was it about the fact that he said he was taking the train during his...
just yes or no, so I can get on with the story. Thanks for ruining that setup. So Dyer said earlier that the Secret Service had commented that they didn't like that Joe Biden rode the train because it was a security risk and all that stuff. So that's actually true. So Wilkow, he has taken as he's visited D.C. If you guys know who Andrew Wilkow is, he does... 3-hour show from noon to 3 Eastern on Sirius XM Patriot. Great, amazing commentator. Certainly one of the best. And he, while he has been doing it for a very long time, as not quite as long as the Hannitys and the Levins, but a little bit longer than like the Crowders and the Daily Wires. He doesn't have any stains on his record on the way that like the Daily Wire does, where they've got, sitting congressmen and sitting senators on their payroll. But anyways, he has had opportunity to go to DC before, and he has taken the train. Wilkow has, and he has a story that he was taking the train during the Obama presidency, and he was in one of the cars, one of the sleeper cars, and he got a knock on his window. And this is a real story. He told it on the radio this week. He got a knock on his window, and he looks up, and it's Joe Biden. And Joe Biden just waved at him and walked out to the next car, or the next little room. And Wilkow's just like, what in the fuck? And so apparently, and it's a well-known thing. It's this problem the Secret Service has had because Wilkow looked into it, and he has sources. So Joe Biden, when he rides the train, he will get up, walk the train, knock on the windows of the sleeper cars, and wave at the people inside. So that's why
that's so creepy.
That's why the Secret Service doesn't like it. Because Wilkow was explaining, he's like, that is such a ridiculous pattern to have. That's such a ridiculous pattern for somebody at that high of an office to have. That would be so easy to exploit for an assassination. You just ride back and forth on the train. If somebody wanted to, I'm not going to go too detailed because we're on YouTube, but if you had a verified pattern like that, and Joe Biden was doing that 217 days a year, it wouldn't be too hard to figure out where Joe Biden is.
Yeah, that is insane. So the security training we're given is when is to switch up the route and exact timing of when you're going to places. So create a predictable schedule because that's exploitable. And it's far more important for someone that actually holds office than just like an average person. But geez Louise, that is such a security risk.
How long do you think it takes somebody to walk the length of a train, knocking on all the windows?
I imagine a while when he's that old.
But
and crazy.
Dyer, do you know who forced Joe Biden? He obviously, because the Secret Service told him not to. He didn't really want to go knocking on all the windows. Do you know who probably told him to do it?
Kamala.
Jews
No. Damn it.
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy.
It was either them. It was them, or there's another group that might have forced him into doing it.
Nazi fags.
Yeah, that group is pretty big group of that in America. It's a real problem.
Yeah, it is. Big problem.
They want to preserve the white race by not having child rearing couples. That makes sense.
Yes. All right. So, what's that?
There's a lot of adoption, I guess.
Yes.
So Biden also, we have another video here. While we're on Biden gaps, Biden promised and play through to 104. He promised that there be no one paying taxes who makes less than $400,000 in a gaffe recently.
The reason I'm bothering to do this is I keep hearing on the press, Biden's going to raise your taxes. Anybody making less than $400,000 a year will not pay a single penny in taxes. And we will not increase the deficit either, unlike the last gigantic tax cut, which increased the deficit by $2 trillion. It's about balancing the system and growing the economy. It would mean wealthy investors no longer pay lower marginal tax rates than their secretary pays, their secretary in their office. Do you want to know what that would do? That would take that money and extend the life-changing middle-class tax cut and put it in place for American Rescue Plan and expand child care tax credit to, I mentioned earlier, that's $1,700 in the pockets of family with 2 kids for now through 2025. Look, just closing these loopholes by taxing investment income at the same rate as wages for the wealthiest Americans.
Adding a new tax is not cutting out the loopholes.
Yeah.
Okay, can I just mention, can I just say the elephant in the room here is that is not fixing the loopholes by adding a new tax.
Okay, what he said was, why we played that longer portion of the clip instead of just saying, he said something stupid saying that he's not going to have taxes for people who make less than $400,000 is because of the exact thing you just said. Because he is one of the people who made those loopholes and has kept them in place.
Yeah. So of the very few things Joe Biden did the last 30 years, or I guess 40 years, that's 30 years in the Senate, was create the modern credit card industry. The modern credit card industry, it only exists in the predatory manner in which it exists because of Joe Biden.
Yes.
You know how Americans have this ridiculous amount of consumer debt is because Joe Biden legalized credit card companies being able to give you a credit card and give you a limit that they know you can't pay back and just get you locked into a cycle of perpetual defaulting on your debt, and obviously not defaulting because then they don't make money, but getting you right up to the very edge, and paying all that interest rate. I mean, how do you think it was legal for them to get that high of an interest rate for uncollateralized debt? It was Joe Biden. Up until Joe Biden led the charge for the credit card industry, regular consumers, it was impossible to get as much credit card debt as what you can currently get. I don't give out a ton of personal information. I have $97,000 of available credit card. I'm not using it, but I have $97,000, almost $100,000 available to put on credit cards if I so chose. That's absurd. Now, the only reason why I have that much is because the credit card game is based off of the credit score game is based off how much available credit card do you have under how much are you using. So I'm using essentially none, and it's over top of a very large amount of availability. And my credit score is off the fucking charts. I didn't make the game, I'm just playing it. But I think it's fucking absurd that I was able to get $97,000 worth of credit cards at my age. That's crazy. But the reason why is because Joe Biden, he set up all of the laws that legalized that. And you've got a bunch of people who are not like me. So when I got those cards, I didn't tell the credit card company hey, I'm not actually planning on using it. I'm just getting this to play the credit card game. And so they didn't give it to me under the assumption I wasn't going to use it. And if somebody was an idiot and was well, instead of getting a better job, I'm just going to charge everything I possibly can because that's income, right? It's probably infrastructure. So they could also get $97,000 worth of credit cards and max them all out, which is very dangerous because that destabilizes the economy. as is self-evident by the currently destabilized economy. But you can thank Joe Biden for that.
Yeah. On top of that, his solution to the fact that the large corporations are using loopholes that he created and could just, his party could just remove. His answer to it is to tax investments, so capital gains, which is something a rate that no matter how much money you make, that's the same investment tax, right? So it's just going to encourage people to not invest into companies, not into the stock market, and then also to raise the corporate tax rate. Since you have all these loopholes that apply mostly to established large companies, they still won't pay that higher statutory rate, but small companies will. And it'll be harder for small companies to grow because they're paying a vastly higher tax rate than international competitors and other companies within our country. He's basically ensuring new companies don't succeed, while the big companies do succeed.
How about this for closing off a loophole that, again, the Democrats and Joe Biden, like, it's not a loophole so much as it is just like hey, here's a bunch of free money to one corporation from the taxpayer. You're welcome for us stealing it for you. Like, how about the stock buyback loophole where the airlines are able to use up all of their free capital to buy back their own stock, artificially inflating the price, and then getting a bunch of bonuses off of it, and then claim, oh, well, there's an economic hardship and we just don't have any money and we're going to collapse the economy. We're too big to fail. And then the government gives them $50 billion and they're like, oh man, we got all this free cash. Now what are we going to do? We're going to buy back more stock. Because that's what American Airlines and Delta have been doing. How about we close that loophole?
Yeah, the legislating money of taxpayer money to the companies you want to support loophole. Yes, that would be fantastic.
Direwolf Media, we're too big to fail, I think. So should probably get a couple $1 billion.
Yeah.
What would you do with $1 billion, Dyer? Like if like Joe Biden was just like, or the Democrat Party was just like, you know what? We pick winners and losers, and we decided that, contrary to popular belief, Direwolf is a winner, and they just gave you $1 billion. What would you do?
A large portion of that money would be going into investments. So the other portion of it would go into helping out the family, and then a large portion would go to developing this business. Actually,
would you buy back all of your stock of Direwolf Media?
Yes, it'd be very easy to do though, because it's worth nothing.
Dies. I don't know. Dyer's like, I don't know. Can you buy back your own blood, sweat, and tears? Okay.
I'll never get the time back. It's all right. You guys are worth it.
You could buy so much Avatar art. That's what you'd do. You'd blow it all on lawyers and furry art.
Yep, lawyers and furry art.
As you're well known to do.
As I have I guess I have a trend of having done that.
Propensity, one might say.
Maybe I'll mix up and just get a normal human fan art. Just one.
Just one. I don't know. Oh, did you see the? I've seen this picture with it says lying dog face pony soldier. Freedom Tunes. Maybe we should pull it up. But they did a cartoon earlier this week, but it had like Joe Biden as a dog faced pony that was a soldier.
Look at
it. It was very funny. All right, while you're doing that, we can probably move on to our next story. You think?
Yes, let's do that.
We will certainly be getting back into Joe Biden economic policy. That's going to be one of the themes tonight.
Yes, that is. We'll be hitting on that hard later on. Yep.
All righty. So we have the best movie ever made is Sleeping with the Enemy, though it is not the I don't know. That's a movie, isn't it? I don't know. Either way, it is not the movie you're thinking about. It is the reality of the Republican Party. So we're gonna start this off with a segment from Tucker, because this was actually
on Friday. We told you.
People like to say, Tucker's just he's just a commentator. He's not really he's not really real news. They say that about Hannity too. But funny enough, while they are commentators, and this happens with Crowder too, right? So they are commentators, but because the news, the legacy mainstream media are so bad at their job, like Crowder, Tucker, and Hannity will very often accidentally break real relevant news that they found out through investigation and research. And so this
it's really easy to look like great journalist when you're compared to people who aren't journalists at all. They're just what do you call them? Propagandists.
What's interesting is that someone like a Crowder, he's literally tripping over breaking news stories because they're just all over the place. And even while he's trying to not find them and just trying to be comedic, he's accidentally walking into big breaking stories. Same thing with Tucker. Yeah. And the mainstream media, the only thing I can think of is that they're actively walking around all of these stories. I was like, oh man, that one almost got me. I'm good thing I didn't report on it.
Come on, are you telling me that they're actively avoiding talking about Hunter Biden and his laptop? Are you telling me they are actively avoiding talking about?
No. I think that they're actively covering it all up.
There you go.
All right, let's.
Epstein, they had Epstein's story a year before.
Well, that wasn't newsworthy, Dyer. That wasn't newsworthy at all. There wasn't enough sources, as you know. Sources are very important.
Yeah, but they'll source themselves and say it's an anonymous source.
Yes.
Or source the same person the person writing the article sourcing something they said in the article.
Side note, we did find out recently who all of those anonymous sources were to CNN. Do you know who they were, Dyer?
Who were they?
Nazi fags.
Makes sense.
All right, let's watch Tucker.
About a character in Washington called Frank Luntz. Luntz lobbies. He's not a registered lobbyist, but
I didn't notice this when I watched this originally, but Tucker's lip is split open. But did he beat the shit out of somebody? Take a few licks too?
I don't know.
I think so.
He lobbies
Probably
on behalf of some of the world's most left-wing corporations. A lot of people do that. Here's the interesting thing about Frank Luntz. At the same time he's doing that, he also advises the leadership of the Republican Party. So Frank Luntz works for Google and Nike and Delta Airlines, among many others. Several years ago, Frank Luntz advised the makers of OxyContin on how to blame rural Americans as thousands of young people in rural America drop dead of opioid ODs. Frank Luntz did that. So he's not someone that normal people would go to for advice. And if you were running the Republican Party, you definitely wouldn't, because Frank Luntz is effectively a Democrat. We know this because we've listened to him. Now, Luntz typically launders his own opinions through the pseudoscientific focus groups that he conducts, but in real life, his views, make no mistake, bear no resemblance whatsoever to the views of actual Republican voters. So again, the question is, how did someone like this wind up with so much influence in the Republican Party? Why do Republican officials listen more carefully to Frank Luntz than they listen to their own voters? That is a mystery. A lot of people have asked that question in Washington. And as of 3 days ago, here was our best guess for why. So why does Frank Luntz remain a fixture in Republican politics at a time when the companies he works for are opposed to the Republican Party, explicitly so? Well, in part because he is particularly close to the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, and has been since McCarthy entered politics. In an interview earlier this year, Luntz described Kevin McCarthy as a personal friend. And that relationship gives Frank Luntz outsized influence over the Republican Party's policy positions. So Luntz is a personal friend of Kevin McCarthy's, who's the top-ranking Republican in the House. That's what we said. Turns out we didn't know the half of it. Over the weekend, we got a call from a source who said that, in fact, Frank Luntz and Kevin McCarthy are not simply friends, they're roommates. Kevin McCarthy lives in Frank Luntz's apartment in downtown Washington. That's what we were told. And honestly, we did not believe it. The top Republican in the House lives with a Google lobbyist? Come on. Even by the sleazy and corrupt standards of politics in Washington, that did not seem possible. In fact, it sounded like a joke. But this morning, since we heard it, we called to check with Kevin McCarthy's spokeswoman. And when we raised this, she all but chuckled at the suggestion. No. When he's in Washington, she told us, Kevin McCarthy rents hotel rooms or sleeps in his office in the Capitol. He certainly isn't living with Frank Luntz. Okay, and that seemed logical to us. But we did press a little bit because we got the tip from someone we consider reliable, and we just wanted to be sure. So the spokeswoman said she would get back to us. 2 hours later, we got this text, quote, following up on our conversation from earlier today. Because of the pandemic, McCarthy has rented a room in Washington at a fair market price from Frank Luntz. So actually, the top Republican in the House does live with someone who lobbies for Google. Mystery solved. Not only are they friends, they're roommates. So now you know why they listen to Frank Luntz, but they don't listen to you. No matter how cynical you've become lately watching.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Like, that is
I want to point out something.
absolutely insane.
It's not that, like, okay, when you have a apartment that you're renting out to someone, like you have multiple rooms, right? And you can't say, I will not rent to this kind of person, right? But that's not what's going on here. It's not like he had a house or apartment on the market, and Frank Luntz, went as a consumer to purchase it, right? Yeah. No, he gave out a room in his apartment, a large apartment, and he's living with the guy. You don't have the same, like, oh, I just gotta let anyone live in my house with me kind of rule. No, he's sleeping with the enemy. This guy, he actively is supporting and arguing on behalf of companies like Google who are silencing conservatives.
The Republicans this week just announced that they're going to have a major pushback against big tech.
McCarthy himself.
They're with one of, like, Frank Luntz is a paid Google lobbyist among lobbyists for other companies. But you have the most powerful Republican in the party right now, the most powerful one who's actually in some kind of power, is leading the charge against big tech while he lives with the biggest of tech's lobbyist.
Yes. This guy is arguing on behalf of big tech and Google that they should have the ability to silence opinions that they don't like, which basically is trying to shut out the entire Republican Party and all conservatives and libertarians, and trying to destroy our ability to have, they're hiding the fact that we have our cities burning. They're just controlling the messaging on firearms and crime.
You had Google
animus.
Well, and you had Google in 2016. We know what they did in 2020. They just were a little bit more coy about it. They didn't let any leaks from their internal memos leak out. But in 2016, they said that they should have done more to try and prevent a Trump presidency. I wonder what else it was that they did.
They had a huge part in pushing the Russian collusion narrative and trying to social engineer our entire country by controlling what information is available, intentionally lying to us and trying to force gun control and
subverting the military
racial division down our throats. Like,
subverting the military, helping the Chinese military.
They're doing a lot to try to attack the American people and control us. And McCarthy himself has spoken about the evils of what they're doing and how wrong and unconstitutional it is. He is verbally an advocate against them, but then he is literally living with one of the largest advocates on the other side.
Now Go ahead.
Okay, so the GOP offered.
Oh no! Hold on. Okay, so before you get into that, so I thought you were still doing freeform. So, do you know that there's rules around what gifts that lobbyists are allowed to give to congressmen, right? Okay, so it was very, very important when Tucker was reading out the text message that McCarthy's spokeswoman sent back to him. It was very, very important that she said that he was paying fair market value. Now, did you happen to get the update that Tucker had on this story from last night?
I heard it, but it's definitely not the
okay,
fair
so
market.
so Tucker has been kind of covering the story all week as I've been finding out more. So this clip I think is from Wednesday or Thursday night. Friday night, Tucker they found out what was the fair market value of the location that Frank Luntz lives in, that he's quote unquote renting out to McCarthy. So it is some of the most expensive, like not just like, oh, you know, everything's expensive. Like, no, it's like on one of like the top 10 most expensive blocks in all of DC. It is one of the most absurdly expensive properties in the country and in DC. It is approximately, the rental value for it should approximately be $5,000 a month. Tucker found out how much McCarthy is paying per month. Did you hear what this number was?
1,500, right?
Yep. So my rent is only half of that, and I do not live in the most expensive block in the country.
So their justification for it was that if you split the floor, the square footage of the place, he's just getting a small portion of his one room. But he's not just getting that room; he's using all the common areas as well, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that if you divide it by the square footage that's being used, that's a fair market rate.
And it's not like it's set up like a duplex, right? So like if you had like a duplex where it was like a single property that was like specifically divvied up into like certain livable segments, it's not that. Like it was just like a giant penthouse thing. So somewhere McCarthy is getting not an in-kind donation, but like a literal specific gift of a $3,500 rental credit per month for the last, year and a half during COVID. That is, McCarthy, he'll never step down because he's the kind of person that, it's not like he has any honor, right? So it's not like he's going to step down on his own. But no. Like, all of the Republicans in the House and the Senate need to be on TV round the clock next week calling for him to resign.
I can understand being civil with your opposition, but with this person who is actively attacking you, your party, and America, and doing all the things that you say are reprehensible, how are you calling this person your friend when they're trying to destroy you?
The other Republicans in Congress, it is impossible. It's been impossible to take them seriously for a long time now, but it is just a whole other level that they are talking about fighting big tech while their party leader currently is McCarthy. Their party leader is literally receiving a $3,500 rental credit from Google every month. The seriousness of the Republican Party in fighting big tech, it would have to start for anybody to take them seriously. It would have to start with them saying, "Hey, we got a snake in our own house that we need to get rid of first." Our battle with big tech, it starts with purging their influence from our party, and that right now is McCarthy. That would be where you would start. I don't understand. There is no conceivable way to me how they could start a battle with big tech while retaining McCarthy, who is receiving these in-kind donations from Google.
He's giving it to Luntz, right? Because he's giving it him a lower price than he would have normally. So he's actually giving McCarthy giving the credit to Luntz, right?
No, this is Luntz's house. Did you misunderstand what was going on here? Luntz owns this property. No, Luntz.
Okay, that's even worse.
No, yeah. Did you not understand that? No. This is a house. McCarthy is renting, quote unquote, renting space from a house that Luntz owns. Luntz bought. All right, let me backtrack here so make sure that you're on the same page.
No, I'm on the same page. I just got the owner of the house that makes up.
Yeah. That makes a big goddamn deal. That makes a really big deal because what money did Luntz buy that house with? He bought it with money from Google. He bought it with money from Delta. Where did Delta get that money from? Well, Delta got that money from you, from everybody listening to me right now.
Us.
Yeah, that's where they got that money from. And who gave them that money? Well, McCarthy was certainly a help in that. If I don't know what his vote on some of those bailout bills, where I know a lot of the Republicans voted for the most recent bailouts. So funny enough, Luntz, a lobbyist for Google and Delta being the key one in this case, lobbies to McCarthy. McCarthy then helps pass a bill that gives Delta bailout money. Delta pays Frank Luntz. Luntz buys a house and then gives McCarthy a room. Jesus Christ.
Part of it is that Delta got that huge bailout when they were not flying planes and thus not incurring the maintenance cost, the fuel cost, all the additional costs. They actually were running their company at a far cheaper maintenance cost, and yet they are being bailed out as though they were running their planes like on a normal schedule.
So
right?
You guys hear the term swamp. We've heard this term swamp for quite a while now, dozens of years. This is the swamp.
Like, people on both sides are the swamp. It's the elite that are they're the people who argue viciously against each other in the halls of Congress, but then they're best friends. And in the end, no matter who wins, they know that they're insulated from the effects of what happens.
Yeah. This is so, and you're going to hear this throughout the next year because, the Republicans are quote unquote out of power. And so, they're going to tell you, you got to vote for us at the midterms because, we can't do anything if we're not in power, which, you know how that's going to work out. You'll give them power and we will.
Who actually is effective.
Yeah. Your local politics, I can't tell everybody who to vote for because I don't know what district you're in, but, try and pay attention to your district. But in general, we know what's going to happen at the midterms is we're all going to vote Republican. And because that's just, again, it's a bad proxy, but it's the only proxy we have for conservative values as the Republican Party. It's a bad proxy. It's just the only one we have. So we'll do it. We'll get the Republicans are predicted to have just an absolute blowout for the midterms. They're going to sweep both chambers, likely, hopefully. And then what are they going to do for the next 2 years? Well, we can't do anything without the presidency. And so we'll do what we did in 2016. We're like, okay, we'll get you the presidency. We'll get them the presidency back in 2024. So they'll have the presidency, both chambers, supposedly the Supreme Court. And then they will still not do anything. But the next couple of weeks here, you're going to see the Republicans say, we need to fight big tech. They weren't saying that 2 years ago when they had power. They weren't saying that, 4 years ago when they gained the power, and they won't be saying it 2 years from now when they get the power back. And they're not going to be doing anything substantive. You'll have Ted Cruz will make a bunch of great speeches and yell at Jack whatever. And everybody, and Daily Wire, who's paying Ted Cruz, will say, "Wow, Ted Cruz was really great at speaking there. We know that he was really great because we paid him to say it, and he made us money by saying it." So like you'll have all that go down, but nobody's gonna actually do anything. The most substantive thing that a Republican Party could do right now, your Jim Jordans, your Tom Cottons, your Ted Cruz's. All of the list of all of them is to call for McCarthy to step down, saying, McCarthy, you are too intertwined with big tech to effectively lead a party that is supposedly going after big tech. So it is just impossible to take any of them seriously right now.
The GOP offers lots of sound bites and outrage. They'll bring Dorsey and Zuckerberg up to Congress and give them a tongue lashing, but then don't actually do anything. They have nothing of consequence for the most part. And even those who have ideas of what they want to do, they don't actually have the support of those swamp creatures on the Republican side to actually support those measures that they or bills they want to put forward. We do have some success with a few state leadership, like in Florida, where they're passing bills that will give protection to people in Florida or people in Texas from tech censorship. But we need that on the federal level and state level. We need it at all levels. And right now, McCarthy, we can't take him seriously. No matter all he says, it's not supported by his actions. And this week, he came out with some more statements. He said this week, quote, Facebook is more interested in acting like a Democrat super PAC than a platform for free speech and open debate. He vowed to rein in big tech over our speech. But why did he do that when we had the House and the Senate and the presidency for 2 years? Well, why didn't he do anything in the time which we had the presidency and the Senate? Why is he saying he's going to do things now when he had the power and did nothing? We also had Republican Rep Ken Bucks. He said this week, Facebook's status as a monopoly has led its leaders to believe it can silence and censor Americans' speech with no repercussions. Now more than ever, we need aggressive antitrust reform to break up Facebook's monopoly. Yes, we do need it more than ever, but we also needed it when you had the power to do something in the preceding 4 years. Why should we believe you will do something now when you didn't do it before? I will vote for a conservative, but I'm not sure I want to vote for. Actually, I know I'm not going to vote for someone who had the power and did nothing. So, yeah, I'm sure they're going to have more hearings. They're going to probably have Zuckerberg and Dorsey back up there again, and they're going to just get yelled at for a few hours and not actually be able to give any real answers, and then we'll get nothing in return.
Yeah, but Zuckerberg, the whatever new program they wrote for his like water drinking simulation subroutine, like it's getting really good. He's getting really good at drinking water the same way real humans do. It's
almost
impressive.
Human, yeah.
It's impressive. So the GOP has claimed to be pushing back on digital media censorship, but it's hard to take them seriously. Not only do we know they don't mean it because they don't want to do it when they had power, but also they are literally sleeping with Google paid lobbyists. Kind of getting mixed signals here. It's a little hard to believe that you're fighting big tech. Like Dyer, when you were fighting the enemy, did you also, like, when you went back at night, did you like go sleep in their caves next to them?
No, I did not. Actually.
Oh, that's weird. Are you sure? Because I mean, maybe you're just not a good tactician like McCarthy is.
Yeah, it's really a brilliant strategy, you know.
They would never suspect it. You sleep where they would least suspect it they couldn't possibly harm you because they're not expecting you to be there.
Yeah, you know, I think the only justification for McCarthy doing this is if he actually slit the other guy's throat in the middle of the night. That'd be actually him taking an action when he's done nothing in the past.
Yeah, the Republicans go from no action against big tech to like assassination of their lobbyists. Well, you know, I guess we get what we asked for. You know, the Democrats, they get what they asked for good and hard, and the Republicans should too.
Oh, jeez. So what are the GOP doing to deal with the overreach and the tyranny of
nothing.
The FBI as well?
Sorry.
They're not taking care of big tech. The other big problem is we have the bureaucracy of the federal government going after us and trying to attack their political rivals and silence Americans. What are they doing about the U.S. spy agencies outsourcing to the spying of American people to commercial entities? What are we doing about that? Nothing. They are going to use these as talking points for why it's so important that we vote for them. And I'm sure I'm going to be voting conservative, but I don't think this is a good justification to vote for them. They should realize that we have no trust in the elites on the Republican Party. But did you hear about that? That they I know it's not new that the intel agencies have used foreign allies to spy on us.
Yeah,
it's not new that social media has spied on us. It's not new, but now they have a formal relationship with the intel agencies to share the information.
Me a question, I start responding, and then he doesn't let me answer.
I wasn't done.
Then don't ask me the question.
Go on.
Yes, yes, I did hear. God damn it, Dyer, you
Nazi fag.
So I did hear about it. So that was a story that broke this week, and there was a lot of hubbub from the conservative side about, oh my God, the intelligence agencies, they're not allowed to spy on you because we have these really inconvenient amendments that the written on paper by a bunch of racists in the 1700s. Very, very inconvenient for the spy agencies. It's just damn, they can't spy on you without a good justification or a warrant. But they still want to. So they have been. The story that broke this week was that they were outsourcing that to private agencies that were then going to be able to sift through your data and track you down and then feed that back to the FBI. And that way the FBI wouldn't have to dirty their hands with, breaking the Constitution. And I was very milquetoast on this story because I was like, well, that's not really news because we have had that for, that's been the status quo for, I think, going on 15 or 20 years now. Because America is part of what is called the Five Eyes Alliance, soon to be Four Eyes. That's a different story. But the Five Eyes Alliance is a union between the U.S., Australia, Great Britain, New Zealand, and I can't remember the fifth one. Probably Canada, if I had to guess, but I'm not sure. If anybody else remembers who the fifth Five Eyes is, let me know in chat. But anyways, the Five Eyes Alliance, a lot of countries have spy agencies, but a lot of countries also have rules in place, like a constitution that says, well, the spy agencies can't be used domestically to, find people for, just to harass them for political reasons. And so if the CIA, say, wants to spy on you, they don't have the authorization to do that because they aren't allowed to spy on domestic citizens. But they still really want to spy on you. So what they'll do is they'll call up MI5 in the UK, and they'll say, hey, we're not allowed to spy on this guy, but you are, being that, the foreign entities aren't bound by the Constitution. And so MI5 will spy on U.S. citizens and then feed that information back to the CIA. So CIA never dirtied their hands doing it. They just got somebody else to do it. And then if MI5 wants to spy on, say, Sargon of Akkad, they can't because there's the whatever the hell passes for a constitution in the UK, but they're still not allowed to do it. So they'll call up the CIA, and the CIA will very happily spy on him and then send MI5 the documents. So you're not really, and so we got this network of 5 different countries that do this. So we've had this for a very long time. The only thing that's different now is that they're just kind of expanding out the Five Eyes Alliance instead of giving it this cute little name and saying like, oh, well, really, it's it's an alliance. It's it's got this kind of patina of official foreign policy on it. It's a good thing. And alliances are a good thing. They're just kind of wholesale saying like, well, we don't really have time to call up Great Britain every time we want to track down a Trump supporter. So we're just going to outsource it to private companies and create essentially private industry around hunting down political dissidents. Man, we're just doing so good at democracy, Dyer. I love it.
So the funny thing is, we have the Five Eyes Alliance, where the federal government's done a very good job of just circumventing the protections we have under the Constitution.
It's like the FISA
first
courts too, right?
Yeah, the first step was Five Eyes. Then we have the FISA courts, which are basically a rubber stamp, and in conjunction with the Patriot Act, allowed for the dragnet spying of Americans anyways, and it's just allowing people. So you say, oh, we come with this bunk reason to, I don't know, how about surveil the sitting president, right? Or a candidate for president. We'll just come with this BS reason, and then we'll survey everyone he talks to. Every person who calls him now is also part of the investigation. See how we've widened our net very quickly. You do that to a couple 100,000 Americans now because of how far are you from Kevin Bacon? Eventually, they're spying Kevin Bacon, right? So then that's why we have in Utah, they have that gigantic. It is just one of many locations, gigantic NSA data collection warehouse where they have all these servers full of information that they're collecting in crazy amounts. And the only reason they have those facilities is because they are collecting data on Americans constantly, and they have the thin veneer of, oh, there's a legitimate investigation it's connected to, right? But in reality, they have Snowden showed it, that they have the ability to pull up information that they're not supposed to pull up and spy on people, and they do that even without the FISA court's authorization. Yeah. So this is not new.
Yeah,
what's
really
new now is that.
Yeah. The thing that's new, Dyer. So yeah, you're right. This is not new, but the thing that's new is that they've perfected breaking the Constitution. There's no way to get better at breaking the Constitution. They've hit peak breaking Constitution. The thing that's new is that they figured out how to pay their friends off with taxpayer dollars for breaking the Constitution. That's the big upgrade. That's the big update this year. The upgrade package for breaking the Constitution is breaking the Constitution 2.0 is break the Constitution and pay off your political friends. That's great, right?
Hello to you as well, 3,310. So, yeah, what they've done is it's far from cracking down on social media censorship.
Monetized it.
They actually they've authorized it. They've incorporated it into the federal bureaucracy as a tool for spying, and they're rewarding it and paying for it. So now, if you go and say, "Oh, we got to stop them from spying on us," they're going to be like, "Well, I mean, you're hurting national security because we need these resources to go after terrorists."
This sounds like it is approaching the lucrative merger of corporation and state.
There's a word for that.
There is a word for that. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
What I can tell you is Antifa totally supports it, so it can't be what I was thinking.
Wait, I think I found the word.
Nazi fags.
That's what it was. They're creating a Nazi fag organization.
You're not supposed to say it. It's Joe Biden saying it. If you say it, we get taken off of YouTube. If the president says it, it's the president.
He's an authoritative source.
He is an authoritative source.
He can't be wrong. He is literally Jesus. All right? When he says it, it must be true.
Dyer.
Why would you do that?
I have serious problems.
You do. I wonder, because we haven't really tested the sound effects. I wonder if they're actually going through. I'm sure that I'm very confident that they are. But wouldn't it be funny if we just playing these and like laughing our asses off for the last hour, but nobody could hear the sound effects?
Oh yeah, that'd be funny. Let's hear in chat if you guys can hear what Joe Biden's been saying.
Why would you do that?
How dare you?
I don't know. So, also a story from this week was the FBI failed for a second time to raid the woman's house whom they thought had stolen Nancy Pelosi's aide's laptop. Not that Nancy Pelosi had AIDS, but it's her aide's laptop. So going back to January 6th.
Not to be confused with Hunter Biden's AIDS laptop.
Which literally had AIDS on it. One of the people who breached the Capitol, a woman in a puffy jacket, stole the laptop from Nancy Pelosi's office, right? And they have pictures of it. FBI then have tried finding that woman and have raided 2 individuals' homes that they thought looked like the woman, but ended up not being that person at all. So the FBI is failing miserably at finding someone who they have full pictures of.
Maybe we should have the FBI be privatized and probably do a better job.
Yeah, they're doing a terrible job at finding this person who has that laptop, and they really should get that laptop back. But I am curious what's on it that's so important to them that they're willing to raid random people's homes. This second thing is, while they're doing this, they have also failed. And that's too hard for them. But the easier job would be like, I don't know. How about stopping the armed gangs of people going around Portland with firearms and just beating the shit out of vehicles and their drivers? That's like in the open and happening every day, and yet they can't. They won't do that. But they will go after them.
Are you talking about peaceful protesters?
Peaceful protesters with rifles who are damaging property. Yes, and people. Damaging people.
It's rifles carrying assault people.
Yikes. Yeah. So
the gun made them do it.
Right. on the list of things that the FBI aren't doing well, they're focusing on trying to hunt down people who were at the Capitol. They're also not doing anything about the Asian, the hate crimes against Asian Americans by Black Americans in Democrat cities. There has been a more than 164% increase on anti-Asian hate crimes reported in the first quarter of 2021 in the 16 major cities, all of which are Democrat owned.
Did you hear about the surge in Asian support for the Proud Boys?
I did hear about that, and there's a good reason for it. Also, a lot of Asians are getting weapons, and they're donating financially to the Proud Boys because they want protection from the far left BLM and Antifa people who are attacking them.
I'm not saying that factions are forming, but they're not forming. I would prefer. I don't know. Maybe like the Minutemen and like all of the little groups that formed during the Revolutionary War. Maybe they were all like kind of dorky too. And it was like, man, like I really don't want the Redcoats to come get me, but like, do I have to be represented by these yahoos? Like that's gonna be us with the Proud Boys. Be like they'll be like our militia, like
on
reluctantly.
The flip side, I think that we're winning when we're getting the group that knows kung fu and can do math really well.
That is not a Venn diagram that overlaps. Those are just two circles. with like they both are within Asian, but they don't overlap within the Asian bubble.
So it's no surprise though that the Democrat supporters, the racialists on the left, are attacking Asians because they've been told it's morally okay to hate them already, and that they are beneficiaries of white supremacy. So it's not only they've been justifying for the last how many years it's okay to hate and to be bigoted against white people, they've also been including Asian people in that. And they even say, yeah, it's not. It may be a type of bigotry, but it's not racism to hate, to hurt, to attack a white person, to disadvantage a white person, because we don't have institutional power. So it's okay to be racist against white people and Asians. So that's the ideology you've been teaching in your universities and you've been supporting with your policies and your law and your messaging. It is no surprise that the radicals that you've created will go on and attack Asians. And it's no surprise that Asians would then flock to the conservative parties and the Proud Boys because they're the ones saying, hey, we don't like racism against any group. We support, we have a big tent. You can come on in and we want your support as well. So it's no surprise that Asians are going towards the conservative side. It's not a surprise at all.
Hilariously, at the same time, the Democrats are trying to push the idea that conservatives are racist against Asians. One of the very first things the Biden administration did taking power was to let go the case against Harvard, where Harvard was being sued by the DOJ for specifically discriminating against Asians. And then the Biden administration immediately shut that down and said, you know what, it's okay that Harvard discriminates against Asians. But at the same time, they are telling you, it's the Republicans. It's Republicans going out, dressing in blackface, and beating up Asians because Trump told them to.
So the few times the Democrats and the mainstream media actually report on the anti-Asian hate crimes, they neglect to say them or mention the skin color of the attacker when it's blatantly obvious when you actually look up the attacks. They often will not say the skin color, but then they'll imply it's white nationalism or right-wing groups, or they blame Trump's racist rhetoric, quote-unquote racist rhetoric. They'll say those things to make the implication that the attacker was a white Trump supporter, when in reality they're often black, most often black. They are in Democrat cities, most likely Democrats themselves.
Yeah, if they're talking about mostly any crime at this point, if they're talking about a crime and they don't if they do specify the race of the victim, it's always a minority. If they don't specify the race of the victim, it's going to be a white person every time. If they don't specify the race of the attacker, it's always a minority. If they do specify the race of the attacker, it's always going to be a white guy. That has just been every crime story for at least the last year. Trails off going back farther than that, but certainly in the last year, every single time. If it is a white attacker, they will specify. If it's a black attacker, just a random anonymous human being. Maybe not even. And if the race of the victim is a white person, you won't hear about it. If it's a minority, they will tell you all over the place and say, this is an example of racism. But if it's a white guy, nothing.
Yep. And also, when they all do report on it, often they report on it incorrectly. In the case of a Net Geo editor who this week reported on one of these attackers, he falsely reported bluntly that the attacker was white and a racist. And in his own, like the picture in his article, it's obviously a black man.
Oof.
I mean, how bad of an editor are you? like, right? You didn't look at the picture? You didn't look up the story? Jeez, that's a terrible editor. So the point is, and this is something we've been foot stomping to no end, that the mainstream media can't be trusted. They will lie to you constantly, and we'll keep reporting on it because it's important for us to be.
No. So this isn't about lying, right? This is not about them lying about the race of attackers or pushing that it was racially based and having a bias as to which races they report on and which races they don't. That's not lying. That's not mistrust. That is actively trying to foment racial tension with the active goal,
using lies, but yes.
Yeah, but it's more than that, right? So like there is it used to be like the media was just lying and it was just causing kind of a confusion as to what reality was, and a bunch of people voted for Biden. No, this is more than lying. This has an active malicious intent, that the specific intent is to foment as much racial tension as is possible, with the goal of having violence based off the racial tension. There is no other explanation for it.
I agree. I agree with you.
Nazi fag.
Was it you? Okay. I'm conditioned to not be sure if that's a donation or not.
No, the donation one's longer.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, it's a different day, same story though, right? I mean, they want us to burn because if it bleeds, it leads. It makes them money. So there's two incentives here. First off, it fits their political ideology for them to have power, because if they support the Democrats will support them. And the second thing is they literally can't make money off of other stories right now. The Republicans don't follow them, right? And so they need something that's rage baity, and makes people angry. So they're getting focused into making these stories that are inherently bad for the country and bad for everyone.
There is money to be made off of this. I have a real job, other than what we're doing right now. And my job is actually creates productive labor and real products.
Unlike all of Congress.
Yes. Well, unlike a lot of other people. I mean, you have a real job. One might debate whether or not the product you create is productive or not, but
I'm not gonna argue that.
But
that's sticky situation.
So I don't really fundamentally understand it, but I can certainly observe that race baiting, race hustling is extremely profitable. Self-evident by the BLM chair buying 4 mansions. I mean, so there is money to be made in race hustling and the way that the media is doing this.
Yeah. There's all these individuals who their entire jobs have been race baiters. You have Sean King, Tariq Nasheed. They have no fame and wealth without just creating fake hate crimes.
Gosh, I wonder just where does all of that money come from? It couldn't possibly be. I bet you it has no relationship to the fact that Congress just flushed $6 trillion into the economy, mostly to the upper 0.001% last year, with a plan on flushing another $10 trillion this year to them. That couldn't possibly have anything to do with a very small number of stupid people having all of this money to give to other stupid people. That couldn't possibly be the reason why, could it?
I do know that they pour a lot of money into these activist groups. Not just like the tax money that they put towards racial diversity groups, but
here's
also
an idea. Why don't we? Here's a tax plan. Why don't we classify certain kinds of labor as productive and non-productive? And we shouldn't be taxing productive labor that contributes to real products, like people that are like building things, like creating stuff, doing real things for people. Those should not be taxed. That's productive labor. Being a YouTuber, should tax it at 70%. Being an activist, you should tax it at 90%. Being in the media, tax it at 90%. People who are doing unproductive labor, you should tax that to the skies.
Someone to go out and protest should be illegal. I think paying someone, like it's their job, to go out there and hold a sign, that is a corruption of what political activism should be, right? It should be.
I don't disagree with the intent. I just don't know how you could practically implement that legally. Know. Also, what I was just saying, like, there's not a practical way of implementing that. Yeah, it's just like if there was some kind of like perfect arbiter, like a god, for instance, that was able to like judge the content of your heart and determine whether or not you were productive, or if you had like the intent to like do this with good intentions, then we could tax it based off of that. So that's what we need.
Well, right now it's already illegal to even give a bottle of water or any kind of compensation to someone who is, at a polling station, right? Because if you allow any of that, it will be abused to bribe people.
No.
Right?
So actually, that's actually like kind of feeding into the the misnarrative that the Biden administration has. So you actually could, if you went there and did not have any political branding, you can go there as a election volunteer. You have to be attached to, like, again, you have to go through the effort of like, okay, like, hey, I'm going to volunteer, which is not a lot of effort. Which you probably, you're intending to volunteer anyways, and you can pass out water. It just can't be that you're going there on your own accord and passing out vote for Biden t-shirts. That's right.
There's a legal way to do it.
Yeah.
But it does exclude an activist group going out and doing that and having and being advocates for their candidate.
Yeah.
In any case, I think we're done with the story, right?
I certainly hope.
Nazi fags.
How dare you?
Juicy nigga.
Why would you do that?
This is the sound of a donation Dyer. And yeah, Fox is right about the reason for lying. Lies are usually to avoid getting into trouble and hide your own evil acts. But when your lies are to cause others to do evil things too, that makes you a corrupter.
Thanks for the $10.
Thank you. And hi Bronx Beast Z on YouTube. How you doing over there? We're not ignoring you. We're just we're reading stories. How you doing though? You're gonna follow back to me in chat. I'll read it out for you.
Yes.
Okay. And most people are over on D Live. If you're curious, if you're over there on YouTube, there's a lot of people over on D Live. There is links in the description, I think, unless Dyer is.
There is.
Okay.
There is.
It's I always leave open the possibility that Dyer did not put links.
It auto generates when you make the show. So.
See, so Dyer's not even really doing it. He's like outsourced it. He's outsourcing it to the bots. Like the bots are taking our jobs. The bots are taking my job.
Do their job correctly, which I mean I really shouldn't.
Okay, let's get on to our second story because it's only 11:30. Alrighty. We're not gonna build back better. We're gonna build back better, because reasons. All right, so Biden has the only thing he's done in the last 100 days was very efficiently dismantle the economy. I thought COVID was pretty bad, right? So we watched COVID last year, and it just wrecked the economy.
It wasn't COVID. It was the response.
Well, either way, just hold on. So we had this rip-roaring economy under Trump. Very quickly got built up. It was just cruising. It had a lot of crazy stuff going on where it was just like, wow, stuff is so good. I don't know what else to do. We had almost zero unemployment. The only people that were unemployed were people who were like, yeah, like I just literally wouldn't take a job for any price. And then we had millions, like 7 million jobs that were open and available because the economy was just cruising. It was like, well, we got so much stuff going on in the economy. We need more people. And everyone was employed already. And so it was just like, well, labor rates were going through the roof and the inflation was going down. Everybody was having a great time. And then COVID pops in and just wrecked everything, right? I thought that was pretty bad. Then Biden takes office, and Biden did in the last 100 days what COVID was unable to do in the last year and just utterly finish off the economy. So Biden started off his administration by immediately taking credit for the positive trend in the economy that he inherited from Trump, because Trump had enough of the COVID lockdowns destroying the big, beautiful, greatest in all time Trump economy. And a lot of states had enough too, and we were opening back up, and things were on the upswing, and then we got the vaccines, and everything was going to be going great. So the economy was coming back, and the economy has a little bit of lag period when people get elected. So whatever its trend was the day that Biden got elected, yeah, it was likely that trend was going to continue on the next day, and maybe the day after that. Probably the day after that. But eventually, the economy does realize, it does adjust to new politicians. And Joe Biden was a new politician. But Joe Biden, he did not let that stop him. He obviously took credit for the economy rising. He actually took credit for the economy rising prior to him being in office, prior to him even being the president-elect. But in the last 3 months, reality has caught back up to Biden. The economy has self-corrected, taking in a Biden administration into account. And while the unemployment rate continued to fall until recently, it is no longer falling.
Yeah, it was falling at a much slower rate in the last 3 months, each month getting less of a reduction, trending towards what happened this month. So pre-COVID, Trump took Obama's new normal of a 4.7% unemployment rate and dropped it to 3.5%, what Obama had said was not possible. Trump lowered taxes and deregulated. That's one of the big reasons why. Trump also passed trade deals that benefited U.S. industry and brought back jobs to the U.S. From overseas. One of the reasons he was able to do that was he reduced the corporate tax rate, so it was actually beneficial for companies to have their labor in our country rather than other countries that previously had lower corporate tax rates. This was why the economy was doing great pre-COVID. Thanks to the state lockdowns, and unemployment jumped up to 14.8% in April of 2020.
Oof.
You'll remember that Trump had recommended a 14 days to slow the spread. Trump did not suggest and did not support the state decisions to lock down this entire last year.
It was like 380 days ago.
he specifically said that the cure cannot be worse than the illness, and that locking down the economy further than his recommendation was going to cause more harm than the virus itself. And he retrospectively was absolutely right. The loss of jobs and the loss of business, thanks to these shutdowns, is on the states, not the federal government. It is worth noting that despite the continued lockdown, Trump managed to recover the unemployment rate from 14.8% in April of 2020 down to 6.7% in November of 2020.
Now, unlike the Democrats, we will point out that that is just Trump guiding the economy along and kind of leading his
Not all of them,
intent
yeah.
for what he wants policy to be. But realistically, that drop was just, we had a bunch of the economic sectors just literally illegal or pseudo illegal to operate them, to the point where you had police running around arresting business owners for trying to operate their business. And we went from that to not doing that. So obviously unemployment's going to drop.
Yeah.
Now, did Trump like manually go out there and like hand pick jobs to create them, and he built them with his own two hands? No, he didn't. But he did encourage a lot of states to get out of the way of the economy.
Yeah.
And that was really the story of the Trump administration, was not making jobs himself, as Joe Biden claims to have done, which is not true. The government does not create jobs. The president cannot create jobs. Though it was pointed out that Joe Biden did create at least one job, and it was for Hunter Biden. But what Trump did do, the success of Trump, was that he encouraged the federal government and the states to get out of the fucking way of the economy and let the economy create the jobs.
Yeah, the Trump economy was pre-COVID. What COVID and the state responses was on top of that, and in spite of his presidency. He did not cause those things. They're all just a burden that was placed on top of the economy. So is not the increase of unemployment and its reduction, both are not connected to Trump, because his policies did not cause that.
Yep. All right, so the unemployment rate continued to crawl down to 6% in March, and with $6 trillion being just snapped into existence and just dumped into the market, much of it put into the stock market and Dogecoins and GameStonks and just housing market, and apparently buying up all the lumber and just weird places. Biden used these signs that his administration was successful, because when it turns out that basically he came to like a dying fire. That was what happened. So it was like a fire. It was just ember. It was a fire that was out. It was just embers, and he dumped a bunch of lighter fluid on it and created this giant fireball. And Joe Biden's like, "I made this fire."
Yeah.
So. I made this. You made this? I made that. All right. So despite him not really doing anything other than just, again, creating all of this dollars that he borrowed, and then, it was the Democrats in Congress. And he didn't even really do that. That was the Democrats in Congress. So Joe Biden's not been a part of this at all. Even the bad things, which is, so I'll even admit that. Even the bad things that happened during COVID, Biden didn't do those either.
Yeah, that was my point in this paragraph, is that like all of the inflation of the stock market, he's using it as a positive when it's not a positive.
Yeah.
But he still didn't cause it, right? And the employment rate being where it was at also had nothing to do with anything he's done. So he's taking credit for things that aren't really good that he didn't also do.
Yeah. So now that the April jobs report has come out, which it came out last week, it shows that the unemployment rate has gone up to 6.1% from 6% in March. Biden and the Democrats are saying that it's Trump's fault. How? They were taking credit. They were taking credit for the drop in March, and then somehow it's their economy in March, and then in April it goes back to being Trump's economy.
That's the time wizard.
Yeah, it's the time machine thing. So obviously Trump's fault. This is the effect of the previous administration. So you can't claim credit from the economy for the first 3 months in office, but say that month 4 is the fault of the previous guy. It's not consistent.
Not how it works.
One might call it a lie. I wouldn't call it a lie, but some people, they might call it a lie.
So Biden and the Democrats haven't done anything to help the economy,
but
they have done a lot to hurt it.
I just want to comment, like a side thing, like it's fun to do a Trump voice because I just have to like be breathy and like say very simple sentences over and over again as if they're like extremely profound. But it's hard to like. It's hard to do a Biden voice because
you're sounding retarded.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I just have to trip over words and say the wrong thing and yell fags. Like, it's not as much fun.
It makes you look way worse.
Yeah, like you can't tell I'm doing a voice. I just sound like an idiot.
And it sounds like you're being
sounds like I'm having a stroke.
like you're mocking people with mental disabilities and also
exactly.
like
it's like I just come off as like a retarded racist.
Mocking Biden by acting the way he acts makes you seem like a complete dick who's mocking mentally challenged.
Like when I'm doing a Trump voice, it's very obvious that's what I'm doing. If I try to do a Biden voice, it's not obvious what I'm doing.
Yeah. So what makes someone mimicking Biden isn't mimicking his speech patterns alone, because you just look like an asshole. You actually have to be dressed like him and be on camera for people to get the full experience. And like be falling asleep, looking tired. So anyways, back to the story. So the Democrats and Biden, and mostly Democrats, though, because again, he hasn't done very much, have not done anything to help the economy, but they have done a lot to hurt it. Again, the COVID unemployment benefits encourage people to not work. So one of the things that they had in those COVID bills was doubling the amount of money you get for unemployment from $300 to $600. Also increased how long unemployment is to basically when they indefinitely until they decide otherwise.
That's a lot of damn money.
And a lot of other benefits on top of that, because that's just the cash amount. There's also upgrades to the SNAP program, and other stuff like that. So basically, if you take all the money that someone is now authorized for being unemployed, depending on what state you're in, you're getting benefits that are equal to a full-time $12 to $16 an hour job. So that's what you get for not working. This has created a labor shortage because people are being incentivized not to work. And then we have all these companies that the ones that are remaining open or are trying to reopen, they are economically strained right now. And a lot of them, the minimum, the normal wage in the area for that job is competitive with a $16 an hour wage. And it's not like, oh, I can either get $16 at home for not working or $16 at a job, because there's additional costs. If I go do that job, now I need to actually give my time. I now have to drive a car. I now have to have the supplies to do the job. It's like you're losing money to go start an actual job. So they need a job that pays way more than $16 an hour, way more than they're being given to not work. So there's no incentive to get a job. So that's why there is a high unemployment rate with people who just will not get a job. And at the same time, we have a lack of workers for the companies that want to remain open. So this is a good example of why the UBI does not work.
Yes.
Because when you have a UBI, people don't work. You've created an incentive to not be a productive member of society. UBI has, I'm going to maintain this since the very beginning, has always been and will always be a stupid idea in this type of economy. Maybe in a world where we have robots doing everything for us, maybe then we can consider it. But I still think it incentivizes nothing but people not working.
Yeah, so I've talked about the robot world before, and really the robots doing everything world just means that you have a underclass of programmer slaves building and programming the robots. My father has a robotics company that he built, and I am intimately familiar with how robots work and how they are programmed and how goddamn difficult it is. I myself have worked a lot with AI and written a lot of AI-like algorithms for forecasting, and I understand the limitations of it. So combining those two things, I understand the limitations of robotics and the limitations of AI. We are not going to the AI automated future at any point in at least 50 years. So all the liberals that are daydreaming about that, they can go learn to code, because that's the other thing too, is right. So the media has demonized the learn to code. Yeah, the only way we're getting to the fully automated luxury communism super future is if people know how to code, but nobody wants to know how to code. So
the type of technology you're saying we need to have that super automated future is going to appear to like magic to the person that lives today, right? We're not anywhere close to that. It is a at best right now a fantasy, and it is maybe possible far, far down the road. But right now, we got to live in reality. And UBI, working with how reality works right now with the technology we have and will have in the near future, does not work, will only create a system where people are not productive. There's no argument against that. And this is just a further proof. Like, we didn't need this example. We have prior examples of UBIs being used and it not working. But the Democrats just have this inability to learn from history because they're not taught it, maybe, or maybe because they're taught it through a lens of lies. But why do we have to keep relearning these lessons, you know? But getting back to what the Democrats and Biden have done.
Hey, White Lion. I don't want to talk about it, okay? Go ahead, Derek.
Okay. So back to what Democrats and Biden have done to hurt the economy instead of actually helping it. Biden's tax plan will give a higher corporate tax rate from what Trump had in place at 21% that brought jobs back to America. And he wants to raise it up to 28%. That puts a corporate tax rate above most countries and above China, which has 25%, and is our top competitor right now.
This is Joe Biden breaking all of the corporate tax loopholes by not actually closing any of them, just raising the amount of tax that they're not going to pay.
Right, and again, that goes back to it's what this new corporate tax is not going to apply to the big businesses, the Amazons, the people that he supports, right? The people that support him, who donate to his campaigns. These people, these large companies, they have all those loopholes that Biden made for them, cut out specifically in some cases just for certain industries and just for certain companies. And this higher tax rate is going to ensure that smaller businesses, new businesses, will not be able to be competitive with big business or our international competitors.
Yep. All right. So Janet Yellen, who is the current Treasury Secretary, before that she was chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is neither a federal entity. It has no reserves, and it's also not a bank. And before that, she helped build the International Monetary Fund, which also has no money. In
short, what you're trying to say is fuck her, right?
Yeah. So she's kind of a cunt, and she builds things that are literally at their core a lie about their name as to what they do. They have no relationship between their name and the things that they do. So she has had a lot of comments about the Biden economy and the Biden plan, and she also loves printing money. The money printer go burr meme is like, that's her. Janet Yellen is the reason for that meme.
That's her massager.
Yes. So her reason was to so she has called for a global she's the this is crazy. The U.S. Treasury Secretary calling for a global minimum corporate tax rate. That has got to be a declaration of war, because there is no the way that you enforce a tax is with coercion. A particular country calling for a global tax is essentially a threat that, hey, someday we're going to go to war with you to take your stuff. You know, it used to be that, you know, we had these, uncivilized wars where we would just, invade a country and take their resources. No. Janet Yellen, she's a woman of culture. We're not going to do any of that stuff now. We're gonna just take their money instead. You know, it's a little bit easier. It's really hard to have an invasion, and then once you have the invasion, you have to mine the stuff and subjugate the people, and it's just a real goddamn hassle. It'd be a lot easier just to have them give you the money, and then if they don't, I just launch a few missiles at them. That's what we got to do. So she has called for a global minimum corporate tax, which actually the IMF has called for that too. That was the IMF originally called for that, but like I said, she helped set up the IMF originally, and then funny enough, she agrees with the IMF.
Surprise, right?
Yeah,
surprise.
I'm much shocked. So her reason for calling for this global minimum corporate tax rate was to avoid the offshoring of American businesses, so that there's nowhere to hide. What?
So, sorry. They realize that Biden's plan to raise corporate taxes is a terrible idea because it will cause offshoring. So her answer to this was, oh, we'll just make sure everyone else has just as bad of a corporate tax. In which case, if that's their answer to solving the problem, it shows that they do know that is the negative effect of their tax plan, and that it will cause American jobs to leave. But there's no chance in hell those companies, those countries that benefit from offshoring and intentionally have a lower corporate tax rate to encourage more foreign investment into their countries, there's no way they're going to stop that.
So this is another example of the more the plans fail, the more the planners plan. So the Democrats and corrupt Republicans for decades have built this legal structure of tax loopholes for their big business buddies, and those same people are now saying, well, those plans, they didn't really have the desired effect of getting us more money. They did get more money off to our friends, so that's a good thing, but we still need more money, as a government. And so they're changing stuff around. So well, we'll just raise taxes. That's a new plan. It gives us more power, and we'll just raise the taxes. And that's not working because of their previous corruption. So their new solution is well, if you just give us even more power by creating a supranational body to collect taxes, that'll solve the problem. We promise. We know that all of our other plans failed, but this one's sure to work out just how we're imagining it. There won't be any unforeseen consequences at all. Don't worry.
Yes.
So, and also the idea too. Also, why would so the entire point, the entire premise of the argument of raising corporate taxes is that the corporations aren't paying their fair share, right? Just say yes or no. Okay. So that's the entire premise. So the whole, I just want to reiterate that the whole premise of raising the corporate tax rate is that the American government is not receiving its fair share of money from corporations. How would an international body, are we to imagine that this international body being proposed would collect international taxes exclusively for the American government? I seem to think not. So I don't. So this is where they're doing what?
No, they're proposing each country tax their own companies at that rate, so that there is a equal playing field for all businesses internationally. That's what they're suggesting. Not America taxing other countries.
I know that's what I'm explaining. So just hold on a second. No, because the IMF has proposed that this go to a global tax, that this go to a global body, and this is similar to the carbon tax credit system that they've proposed before. But the whole premise of this is that the American government isn't getting its fair share from corporations. So how would giving more tax money to an international organization solve that problem? It wouldn't. So this is the head fake. So they're kind of, it's like a magician where they're doing a fancy flourish with their right hand and their left hand is pickpocketing you, literally. So their whole sales pitch on this is that, well, you're just a regular American and you're getting taken to the cleaners by these big corporations. They're taking advantage of you by not paying their fair share. If we create this international body, it'll make them pay their fair share. And if you're a stupid idiot, like somebody who voted for Biden, you're like, oh man, that would work out great. If they were paying an international body, that would definitely get them to pay their fair share. You not realizing that, them paying their fair share to an international body does nothing for the American tax revenues.
So there's two outcomes if they actually manage to do this, which I don't think they can because no country would be okay with this. Why would China give up their advantage over U.S. companies? Why would other countries that specifically have low corporate tax rates to encourage American investment? But anyways, if they actually manage to do this, it'd be two ways. Either those countries will say they have that tax rate, but then not actually enforce it. They have loopholes that would allow businesses not to actually pay it. So it's really just a lie and did nothing. Or if they actually manage to get every single country to have that same corporate tax rate, what they're going to end up doing is the same thing is happening in America, is they're just going to block out new and small businesses, thus creating a world where international businesses like Amazon can conquer the market in every country.
So I don't think that they are getting close, but they are marching in the direction of a one world government, right? Like that's not what?
That is their goal.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not a conspiracy theory or anything. Like that is the explicit goal of the UN and the International Monetary Fund and all these big international bodies. Is like they are marching, and they think that they are marching towards a one world government. And so these proposals of these international taxes, these aren't serious policy recommendations for the current setup. These are proposals for what they want the one world government to implement once it's in place. Now, they think that it's coming rather soon. That's been very obvious in a lot of things they've been doing, and the way that they are very deferent to international bodies and organizations. That is obviously something that they want, and so they're getting a little ahead of themselves by releasing things like this international tax. That is a policy proposal for the one world government that does not currently exist. Perhaps someday it will. And if it does someday, it will certainly be looking back on things like this as policy recommendations. It's just right now it's not a serious thing. So when you see this with like the Paris Climate Accords. So where they are trying to, and what the attempt was with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they are trying to network countries together by locking them in, roping them together with these international unaccountable boards of things that will eventually become amalgamated into a one world government.
They're setting the precedent that these international bodies do have ability to enforce regulations and laws over other countries.
Exactly. So when you're seeing these kinds of things where you're like, that seems crazy that Janet Yellen would be proposing an international tax as the U.S. Treasury Secretary, that is them giving away the game that they are not just a globalist, but that they are a one world government advocate. I think you hear me say something like that 5 years ago. It's like, man, Fox, you are a conspiracy theorist. I really don't think it's a conspiracy theory.
I got a good example for you.
Go for it.
So Obama was allowing the international court to try Americans, whereas Trump's response was no international court will try Americans for crimes. That was a very different view. Obama being a globalist and Trump being a nationalist.
Yes, I agree. I wasn't listening. I was reading chat. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Like, did I just stun you? Anyways,
I am less stunned.
Like, I didn't think it was that big of a point.
I'm sure everybody thought it was much profound.
So, yeah, that's what they're working towards, and they first have to set the precedent that these bodies have a legal claim to regulate other countries, unlike the U.S. We have to cede our sovereignty to these organizations. And it doesn't happen all at once. They have to set precedent over time.
Yeah.
More string.
So back to the original part of the story about the Biden economy. Let's see here. So you also have so Dyer was explaining earlier about this kind of mismatch between there's a lot of open jobs because the economy was essentially shut down, and now we're opening it back up. So all the companies that weren't allowed to operate now they can, but they need people to come back to work. But there's still high unemployment because nobody wants to go work for them because their unemployment benefits are so much better. And part of the reason why the unemployment remains high is not just, again, you still have lockdowns in some areas, some of these big blue areas, the big cities. And then in other areas, you still have, just these high unemployment benefits. So New York right now is at 8.5%, and California is at 8.3%, which is a lot of people. That is a lot of people. And then you also have, just thousands, literally thousands and thousands. Not an exaggeration, probably an underestimation, realistically. Thousands of energy sector jobs that were ended, snap of a finger, swipe of a pen, with the Keystone Pipeline being canceled. That was I think the numbers on that, if I'm remembering back correctly, was like
10,000.
Yeah, I think it was 10,000 immediately, but it was estimated.
Oh yeah, that was just the workers.
Yeah, it was
Not
estimated.
Even all the other stuff.
Yeah, it was estimated to have impacted like 46,000 jobs, like over the course of the next year, which is like, that's a lot of jobs. And now they all don't have jobs.
And then he was coldly indifferent, like, oh, those get other work. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Weren't you the one who was saying, like, your party was saying that people should just go learn to code was wrong? Is that just the same level of indifference of, just learn another trade? Come on.
Yeah. And they go ride on Amtrak and have Joe Biden knock on their window. But yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why the economy is weird. You guys, I think I'm going to go back and try and find it, but we did a video. I want to say it was in like June, maybe July last summer, where it was right after we did the big stimulus, and I did a little explainer on inflation and what was about to happen. And I said the timetable was about 18 months, and we're coming up on 12 months. I think certainly by 18 months from then, I will have been proved correct, because I'm already starting to be proved correct. Where I explained about really high inflation, which I don't think that was like a novel thing. I don't think it takes a lot of intelligence back then to have realized, like, hey, they're dumping $6 trillion into the economy. It's probably going to devalue the dollar. I don't think I'm some kind of super genius, but just like the way we explained it and the predictions we made, a lot of those are coming to bear right now, where you have, and a lot of other people are saying this too, but right now we're having a situation that was easily predictable, where we are overpaying unemployment benefits. And so we're having this weird stagnation in the economy where there's a lot of unemployed people, a lot of people collecting those unemployment checks, and then there's also a lot of available jobs. Normally, when your unemployment's high, it's because there's no jobs. But like, there is jobs. There's actually, the economy is shuddering right now because there's not enough people working. There's not enough people doing productive things. Right now, there's shortages in all kinds of crazy places. Ammo's a big one. Part of that is because it's hard to find people to work. You got restaurant, fast food industry having a hard time. You've got building materials, construction labor. They're all having a hard time. Yet a lot of these labor sectors where, like Dyer was saying, you could sit down and do nothing and get $600 a week, or you could get $800 a week, but you got to go do hard labor for 40 hours a week. So you have a lot of these sectors that the American economy relies on. People that are like, building stuff, doing things that are productive, things that are hard. And that is what the economy relies on. You can't support a modern civilization on everyone being a YouTuber. Some people have to build washing machines. Some people have to build cars. Some people have to dig coal. That is the only way. So what you're going to end up with is a lot of these people that are doing these hard, productive labor jobs is, why would I go waste all that effort? Why would I do that when I can make the same amount sitting at home doing nothing? And that's not to say that they're idiots or that they're lazy. They're making a rational decision. I've had a lot of big financial moves the last year with different stuff that's happened with me. And I was talking to Dyer about this last week. It's really, really hard to make big economic decisions right now. Things like buying a house, paying off a car, paying off student loans. It's really, really hard to make a financial decision about that because the Democrats have just turned the economy into this giant randomizer funhouse where there is no rational market forces. So I'm looking at houses. Well, houses are going up 10% a month right now because they're just going crazy. Everybody's buying up houses. There's no inventory available, and everybody's got they're all flush with thousands of dollars of extra cash from the stimulus bills. And so they're bidding up the house prices. They're bidding up the house prices to ridiculous levels. You've got lumber there's just no lumber because nobody's out there cutting down trees, half because Joe Biden locked down the forest reserves. The other half is he's taxing them out of existence and putting them with undue regulations. So that's driving lumber to be completely shortage. You've got even if you had lumber, there's no contractors to build anything with it because they were told that they weren't allowed to work for the last year. And then a lot of them were just like, I'm not going back to work. I'm going to sit at home and collect $600. So you've got this just insanity in the economy. And as a rational person, it's really, really difficult to make rational market decisions because it's not enough for me to look at the market and say, oh, well, I think that this trend is going to go like this because, this, and this is logically going to create this condition. No, I have to look at the economy and say, what do I think the Democrats are going to pick as their winner and give a bailout to? That's who I need to bet on. And so that's what I'm stuck with doing in financial decisions right now. Should I pay off my student loans? Well, that would be really stupid if they're just going to forgive them in 6 months. Should I get a new car? Well, no, I can't because there is no cars because nobody's building the cars right now. So I don't even know where all this got started at, but just the economy right now is completely irrational. I think that's where I was going at, was just this is what we predicted 12 months ago, and I think we're absolutely vindicated, and it's going to only get worse, where it is impossible to make rational decisions. That's why you got Dogecoin going up 20,000% in the last 3 months.
The inflation that we've been talking about is definitely happening. A lot of products, most products, you're already seeing the prices rise. Now, printing money and inflating the economy is another tax. And so that's another he's saying, we're not really increasing the taxes that much, but we are increasing taxes on your investments. We are increasing taxes on corporations, which is going to affect whether or not how much they can pay you and how much they can hire. But they're also taxing you by making your money that you are paid worth less. Now, that what you normally have when you have inflation or a perceived future inflation, the best way to help keep the buying power of your money is to invest in hard assets that will also increase in value. So increasing or also the stock market. But the problem is that the stock market is also completely, like you said, irrational. The Democrats are picking and choosing which companies they want to succeed and which ones they want to fail, by which ones they're going to pour massive amounts of government funding into. So it's hard to know what to invest in to save your money from losing value right now.
Yep. Well, and it's hard to make rational choices, and it's even hard to do rational things because, isn't that so much fun for, millennials graduated high school into the housing crisis. Thanks guys. Thanks Obama. Thanks Democrats for setting that up. Joe Biden was largely an orchestrator of that too. He certainly helped grease the wheels for the housing crisis in 2008. And then, they finally get back on their feet with the Trump economy. Thanks Trump. And then ready to go again, and then Biden comes in, and just the whole thing just gets upturned again. It's really no wonder that millennials are so liberal or so socialist or progressive in their economic thinking. They've not had any experience in a rational capitalist economy where the market forces make the decisions. They've only ever had experience in an economy that is a total randomizer, and the only thing that's rational in it is just trying to guess which group is the Democrats going to see favor on today. And so it's no wonder that they all think that capitalism doesn't work, because it doesn't under Democrat rule. It just does not work. Right now, we are not under rational market conditions. Capitalism is failing, not because it's inherently flawed, but because the Democrats are actively trying to break it, which is absolutely hilarious when you'll have leftists say, well, capitalism doesn't work. Well, yeah, because your party's breaking it.
Intentionally. It's the Cloward Priven strategy.
Yes.
So, you know what is working exactly as intended?
Us staying on schedule?
Yeah, exactly. It's the Great Reset. That is not a conspiracy. It is a goal of the globalists. The government response to COVID not COVID itself, but the systemic destruction of small businesses and the forcing people into government dependency. The boosting of government spending that has made the rich richer and the poor poorer. This is all by design. This is what their intent was, is to work towards that great reset. And I think that they've achieved victory. What do you think?
I think they're not doing a bad job of it. I'm not trying to judge you, but is your wife vacuuming in the middle of the night?
No.
Oh, do you have your AC on?
No.
Oh, I hear a vacuum cleaner.
I think you're hearing my laptop's fan.
Oh, okay. That we're cooking. We're cooking Dyer's laptop.
It is getting a little bit hot in here because of the fans off. The AC's off.
Gotcha. All right. Well, moving on to our next story, which we're going to go through as quickly as possible. Let's see. We have a very special video for you tonight. It's something that I thought was very profound, and didn't realize until this fine, empowered person, human thing
claims to be.
Yes, told me about it. So let's listen to what she had to say.
St. Louis, and I thank you, Chairwoman Maloney and
302.
Congresswoman Kelly, for your leadership and convening
Is that
this
where I need to go
all-important
to?
hearing.
It says start at 302.
Look, it's like
Nazi fags.
every
How dare you?
Jews in the
Why would you do that?
Thanks
God
to
damn
you
it.
guys, I bought tons of stuff before the pandemic. Shortages and Fox's advice helped me double my equity and liquid assets in 8 months. Here's another $10 of funny money.
Oh,
Fox can buy himself lemon bonsai so he won't die of scurvy.
Oh, that's right. I still haven't gotten a lemon bonsai. I did just buy a house, even though it was hard to find one. And you've reminded me that I wanted a lemon bonsai, and I will now get one for my new house. That's what I'll get as my housewarming gift. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so, yeah, thanks for remembering my financial advice, which is not financial advice. Just a reminder. But you're welcome. Alrighty.
harsh and racist treatment during pregnancy and childbirth. Every day Black women die because the system denies our humanity. It denies us patient care. I sit before you today as a single mom, as a nurse, as an activist, and as a congresswoman, and I am committed to doing the absolute most to protect Black mothers, to protect Black babies, to protect Black birthing people, and to save lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
Black birthing people.
I want to point out that this congresswoman, was it Cori Bush?
Yes.
Yeah, Cori Bush, which says a lot about her. She has been a advocate in favor of Planned Parenthood and the woman's right to abort their babies. So
did you hear that Planned Parenthood actually gives birth to babies? They don't actually kill them. Did you hear that?
Sometimes they give birth or let them help deliver them and then kill them afterwards, so I hear.
Yeah, well, no, actually, Ocasio-Cortez this week, she said that a lot of people have, they hear the right-wing myth that Planned Parenthood kills babies, when in fact they help them be born, and that, if you've never met a Planned Parenthood baby, that would have been Ocasio-Cortez, as she told us, which I wonder... Now that you bring that up, that the only kind of Planned Parenthood baby that we had ever heard of was failed abortions, it makes me wonder what if AOC's mom was trying to nip that one in the bud before it happened.
Yeah, they have said that Planned Parenthood does a lot of things that they don't really do. Like they claim that they do mammograms when like only a couple places are even have the equipment to do mammograms.
So
right?
no, almost none of them do. So
Almost none.
Crowder, if you guys go to Crowder's,
right?
I don't know. So if you guys go to Crowder's channel, they did a big investigation. His wife, and some of the other females that work for him, they all called out to various Planned Parenthoods all across the country, and they did a pretty intensive research, investigative research project into it. And they were unable, they were trying to schedule mammograms at Planned Parenthood because that was one of the common things the Democrats said was that mammograms are done at Planned Parenthood and that is breast cancer survival and all that stuff. So they called and there was no mammogram machines available. So like they just didn't have them at any of these Planned Parenthood. So they've done that research. They did the same thing with prenatal care, not available. Prenatal care supplements not available. Ultrasounds not available, which is funny that they're able to do abortions without ultrasounds. That seems tough. But yeah, so it is just not true that Planned Parenthood, maybe some of them accidentally do baby stuff, but not usually.
There's actually a training and education that goes into a person who's doing a sonogram to get the metrics on the baby to make sure they're healthy. It's not required when you're doing a sonogram just to identify the baby you're going to kill later. So they claim they do prenatal stuff, but really what they're just going to do is either nothing, or they'll refer you to an actual hospital and they won't do anything themselves. So they exist purely to do abortions, and they were designed, and they are very effective at encouraging black women to kill their babies and then killing their babies. So if this woman was really honest about caring about black women and their babies, she would not be such an avid supporter of Planned Parenthood and the right to abort children. But one thing that most people focused on in this entire speech she gave was the fact that people focusing on the absurd phrase of birthing people, which is a term to intentionally obscure language to make it harder to describe things accurately, and which just creates a distraction in your message. So she was getting mad. People were getting mad that, hey, why are you focusing on birthing people rather than what she was actually talking about? Well, you said something stupid that was a distraction for your message. You can't blame that you are other people for being distracted by your inability to communicate clearly, right? But yes, birthing people, she's trying to imply that people other than women can give birth, which is not true.
Yeah. So Sargon of Akkad's done under his real name, Benjamin, but he on Lotus Eaters, which I highly encourage you guys to check out. He's been doing some explainers on what they're doing with the language, doing a more kind of breakdown about what's actually going on, and so like with this one in particular, so when you say woman or mother, that's a thick concept. There's a lot of layers to what a mother is. There's a lot of implied about what the relationship is within the family, who's doing what in the household, where what the relationship with the child is. There's a lot implied with saying mother. So it's a very thick concept. And so the Democrats have tried their best to reduce the complexity of that language, to reduce the meaning by saying birthing person, which has removed all of the context of what a mother is, what they do after the baby's born, what they what the relationship within the family is. That's all been removed, and it's just they are a sack of meat that creates a smaller sack of meat. That is what a birthing person is. Yeah. And it is just all context and humanity removed.
So in this story that preceded her crazy comment about birthing people, she was describing how she had a doctor tell her to ignore birthing pains or pains during pregnancy that ended up resulting or being a first sign in an early delivery that almost led to the death of her first child. And which, by the way, that child was a pound and had translucent skin, and I guess by her own definition, it was just a clump of cells, right? Yeah. It wasn't a baby; it was a clump of cells. It was over a month early when they would actually be able to abort this child. But so, why is she upset? You almost lost a clump of cells. You didn't almost lose a child, crazy person.
Where are the other kin and furries with this whole like birthing person thing? I think they're getting left out on this.
Yes, we need a more inclusive term.
Yes.
So the other thing was after that birth.
I propose gestational meat sack.
Could it be more gross? Can we think of a more gross term, please? So then she had a couple months later, after that first early birth, she got pregnant again, and had another, a few months later, another early delivery, and she says that the doctor had said, we don't need to try to save the baby. Come on, you'll get pregnant again. It's what you people do. So she's claiming this doctor said something racist.
That means that you're a racist, Dyer. Like some random Planned Parenthood doctor said something racist. That means that you're racist, doesn't it?
By her definition, yes, because I share the same skin color. So she then goes on and says that because of this example of one doctor being ignorant and one doctor being racist, that the system, the U.S. medical system, is racist against black women.
Jesus.
And my point.
Imagine if we used one example of a black person committing a crime to, mark their entire race as being a certain way. Man, that would be a slippery slope, wouldn't it?
It'd be rather racist, I would say. But what she failed to do was identify a process, a part of the system that it actually is working as designed to disadvantage or hurt or in some way harm black women like she's claiming. All she showed was, if her story is true, and I don't believe it for a second, but whatever, assume it's true, all she's proved is that there is one racist doctor out there. And also one doctor who didn't identify women having pain during while carrying a baby as a sign of a preterm birth. Yeah, I mean, that does not at all describe a system that is racist.
What might describe a system as racist is a system that sets up abortion clinics in exclusively black neighborhoods and aborts black babies like 3-1 when they're at high excess of what their percentage of the population is, and right. A system that is funded by the Democrats to the tune of billions of dollars per year that created a situation in which a black baby has less than a coin flip of chance of not being aborted before they're born. And then unfortunately after they're born, a little bit better than a coin flip of not being killed by another black person. Yeah, that might be a racist system, but who set it up? Who built the cages, Joe?
Yeah. So this woman who is supporting the systematic killing of black babies through Planned Parenthood, who supports BLM and Antifa, who is systematically attacking black communities. This woman is then going on and saying that the medical system in its entirety is racist. But if there is no policy or procedure within that system that actually is targeting black people, what is she proposing be changed?
Well, she's not.
There is no solution to the problem she's suggesting.
Well, she's not trying to solve the problem. She's trying to defeat the language and obfuscate what the problem is so that she can turn the problem into whatever she wants to point the finger at you and say that you're a racist, and the only solution is to give her more power. And one of the reasons why so you kind of wonder what is the reason why they're modifying the language. So part of it is that it's two reasons. Part of the reason is to try to take control. So they're trying to obfuscate meanings of things so that it puts them in more power. It is easier to take power when the population has their language confused. A lot of examples of that throughout history. The other reason is that it hides their atrocities. So you hear very regularly the Democrats will say, well, abortion is health care. Why do they say abortion is healthcare? Well, because it's not really it's not good optics for them to say that killing black babies is healthcare. Preventing blacks from being born is healthcare. That's not as palatable. So they have to obfuscate these terms, call it abortion. Now they're not even going to call it abortion. They're going to call it healthcare. And that's not really what Planned Parenthood provides. Healthcare. They provide maternity support and all this stuff. But because if they were to say what they're actually doing, people be a lot less interested in supporting it. You see this with a lot of atrocities throughout history, a lot of authoritarian regimes. They, especially when it has to do with killing large groups of people, they will obfuscate the language and call it something else as a euphemism. Because
the Young Turks.
Yes. Because
they deported people.
Kamala Harris, she doesn't get vice president. Well, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why she shouldn't get that. But Hillary Clinton, she doesn't become the very, very narrow loss to Trump. She doesn't get that close by saying what she believes, which is that, well, preventing black people from being born is healthcare. She says that. She's not even on the stage. But because they obfuscate the language, they can distance themselves from the atrocities they're committing. And, you got a lot of stupid people that can't see through that.
Yep. So her goal here, obviously, wasn't to actually solve any kind of racist problem, because there is no solution for the system she's describing. All she's doing is trying to focus on this new destruction of the English language and to call white people racist and in a bid for power. So when people focused on her saying birthing people rather than the rest of her statement, I say it's justified because she did not propose a problem that had a reasonable solution.
Yes.
Anyways, that's our last story, right?
We got one more. So, because it worked out so well the last time the Democrats made strict rules on cigarettes.
We're doing great.
That certainly didn't cause any unintended consequences of, when they were heavily regulating cigarettes. Certainly not. Thank you, Atter Lupus, for sending us a diamond. Thank you, Throat Punch, for following. Who else followed? There was Trump 2424 followed. I'm sure that those were numerology for something awful. Thank you for making me say it. And then I think somebody else subscribed to us, but I appreciate it. And it has a go on YouTube. I see you guys over there too. So the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, because are cigarettes? I guess they're a drug.
A drug, tobacco.
Okay. Anyways, so the FDA has announced, under the guidance of Joe Biden, announced that it will ban both menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars, which is pretty aggressive. That's a lot of products. That is, I mean, this would be like if the FDA came out and said, "No, I'm not a smoker, though I have enjoyed a cigar from time to time." But flavored cigars and menthol cigarettes, I mean, this would be like the FDA coming back out and saying, like, well, we're not going to do prohibition, but we're going to ban gin, bourbon, whiskey, and tequila, and craft beers. We're going to ban those things. That's a really big portion of that market, as is menthol and flavored cigars.
And this is the Biden administration picking winners and losers. They just destroyed entire companies.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, where are these people going to go work at? Now, I'm not a big defender of big tobacco, but, like, you can't just go through the. You got the Democrats right now are trying to blanket legalize marijuana, which, from a direct impact on your lungs, is unfiltered usually. So I'm not a doctor, but the idea that the Democrats are simultaneously pushing a new form of smoking at the same time they're trying to ban an old form of smoking is an example of the incoherence of their party and their policies. And it is very clearly, as Dyer said, picking winners and losers. And actually, you've seen some actually direct quotes from them during the election season that, in their minds, well, legalizing marijuana is good jobs for black people because in their minds, black people are only qualified to be drug dealers. I'll let you guys sit with that one. So back to the current story. So Dr. Janet Woodcock, wow. Just wow. Dr. Janet Woodcock.
Don't read that last part. That next part. Sorry, that was a copy over.
What? Okay. Dr. Janet Woodcock, the acting FDA commissioner, said, quote, banning menthols, the last allowable flavor in cigarettes, and banning all flavors in cigars will help save lives, particularly among those disproportionately affected by these deadly products.
How? So, I'm sorry, there is no white privilege when it comes to smoking cigarettes. It's if anything, it's a good choices privilege. You are either choosing to smoke or not. No black person is being forced to smoke cigarettes. Every black person who is smoking cigarettes had the choice, and they chose.
Did we get to the part where they're talking about did they say a racial component?
Yes, disproportionately affected.
Are they talking about black people?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
In the context of the article.
Well, maybe we should read the rest of the article so that everybody else has that context too.
Well, you don't know that's what they're talking about. I'm telling you now that when she's referring to disproportionate affected people, she's talking about banning menthol cigarettes because of black people being more killed by them than white people.
So I seem to again remember as I open the story a particular black man in New York who was selling Lucy cigarettes, and because it was illegal, the police intervened in this, and it resulted in a black death due to cigarettes.
Yes,
one might say.
I want to point out that anytime you pass any law, I've said this before, you are including in that law the maximum punishment of death. So when they're banning menthol cigarettes, in my mind, they're saying you will not be able to buy or sell these menthol cigarettes, or if you resist, we will kill you.
Well, yeah, and so the Democrats have very openly stated that police interaction is lethal to black people. That is, I don't ascribe to that, but that's what the Democrats have been selling. But now they're saying to save more black people, they're going to create more things that are illegal, thus increasing the number of police interactions with black people. That seems...
And if they believe that menthol cigarettes are more used by black people, then they're also increasing police interactions with black people by banning them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe as like a percent of the maybe as a percent of their like subgroup, but like as a percent of like the total population, I find it hard to believe that black people are smoking more than white people just because there's more white people. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
I doubt it. But by their logic, right?
Yeah, I don't know. So let's see here. So Philip Gardner, co-chair of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. Wow, that is a name. Said, quote, "It is a victory for tobacco control generally, and especially for African Americans who use menthol cigarettes disproportionately and who die disproportionately from tobacco-related diseases," Gardner told Healthline. Wait a second. I was told by unreliable sources that black people were dying because healthcare was racist, not because they were making choices to smoke cancer-inducing drugs.
Hey, I mean, if you tell a woman she can't smoke while she's pregnant, you're just being a racist.
A who dyer? A who?
I'm sorry.
I think you meant gestational meat sack. I think you meant to say gestational meat sack. God, you're such a bigot.
Nazi fags.
Yeah, that's so. This is it is so hard to be a Democrat. So one of the reasons why I think you have kind of backtracking a little bit. I think one of the reasons why you have this like epidemic of like black on Asian violence, while at the same time the Democrats are saying, "Hey, we should stop being mean to Asian people" for like the first time in forever, is because nobody got the memo because all the schools were closed, and so black people and other people just didn't get the memo. Like, hey, the updated Democrat talking points are, we're not attacking Asian people anymore. And because the schools were closed, the people on the ground didn't get that update. And so they're still doing it. They're still enacting the Democrat policy. It was just, not the most recent update. But you just have things like that where you have just like this incoherent from moment to moment Democrat policy. And it's so hard to keep up with it. Like, well, black people are dying because the healthcare system's racist. And then the next moment, it's like, well, black people are dying because they're making personal choices to smoke. and the way, do you know the way that you stop black people from doing that is you make it illegal, because then the police will stop them from trying to kill themselves. And then the next moment they're saying like, well, police interacting with black people, that's racist and it's going to kill black people. So basically what you're seeing here right now is the Democrats have made a trade-off by saying like, well, cigarettes are more lethal to black people than the police are, which probably is a rational. I'd say that's probably a rational assumption. I'd have to see the numbers on it, but I would say that's probably correct. But that's not coherent with their other rhetoric that the police are literally organizing hunting gangs to go out and lynch them in mass. There's a
we know it's also not coherent that we have a vice president who made her career off of putting black men in jail for drug crimes in the war on drugs, and then was advocating for slave labor beyond their sentences. This is their candidate. It doesn't make sense. None of this has to be coherent. It's not meant to be coherent. Yeah. It's all about their tribe. It doesn't have to make any sense whatsoever.
And you know what's crazy too is cigarettes is actually a pretty good example of the free market and information being available, having a successful outcome for rational actors. So there was legislation passed that the cigarettes need to have warning labels on them. I think that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. It's true, and it's giving the consumer more information about the product that they're purchasing. And consumers were able to make rational choices with those warnings in mind. Some of them looked at them and said, you know what, I'm willing to take that risk. That's where my risk tolerance is. Some of them looked at it and said, you know what, my risk tolerance isn't that high. I'm going to quit smoking. And then you used to have the issue. Some of you are probably, a lot of you are probably old enough. Some of you maybe there's a distant memory, but there used to be smoking sections universally in all restaurants. Like you go to Bob Evans or McDonald's, and there used to be a smoking section. There's not anymore, and that wasn't legislation. That was free market. That was the free market decided. A lot of companies were like, you know what? Most of our people, even if they're sitting in the non-smoking section, they can still smell the smoke. They don't like it. They don't want to eat here. And so they stopped doing that. And that was free market decisions. You've had an incredible slash in cigarette sales decade to decade. And that's all been driven by the free market. That didn't require... all that required was for the government to say, hey, you can't lie about your product, and you need to make sure you're giving consumers correct information, which is fine. That is a correct role of government. I think that is within their boundaries. It's hard to approve of what the government does sometimes, because so often it's them going outside their boundaries. But every now and then they accidentally do something that is within the boundaries of what their job is. So that was great. But for whatever reason now, the government has decided, you know what? The free market has been working for so long. Let's just go in there and do it anyways. The free market was going to, they were going to basically get rid of cigarettes all on their own, give it another 2 decades. And they're just like, you know what? We want to get into people's lives. We want to make sure that we're inconveniencing people as much as possible. We want to make sure that police are interacting with black people as much as possible. And hey, you know what's a bonus? You know what's a bonus on getting rid of all of these different kinds of tobacco products? Who do you think's going to pick up that slack? They're not banning cigarillos in Mexico. They're not banning cigarillos in Canada. They're not banning menthols in those countries either. Who do you think is going to pick up the slack on those menthols? Who do you think is going to pick up the slack on your wood tip wine cigarillos that are delicious? Who do you think that's going to be, Dyer?
Probably criminals and cartels.
Yes, the cartels. This is Joe Biden saying, hey, cartels, here's a whole new line of products. Yeah, here's a whole new line of products. And you know what? Here's a conspiracy theory. What if... Now, if this was, I don't think it's true, but if it was true, it might actually be acceptable. What if the Biden administration did the calculus and said, hey, what if we ban something that's like perfectly reasonable, like menthol cigarettes? And then the cartels, they're forced to have to supply them. And they'll start supplying those instead of heroin and fentanyl. And, then they can have, they'll be supplying these, which are not nearly as lethal, not immediately lethal. And then we'll solve the hard drug problem because the cartel supply chain will be so clogged up with menthols.
I don't think he's that smart. What I'm concerned about that is that there's tens of thousands of jobs wrapped up in the companies that make those products that will now no longer be able to make their products at all.
And realistically, if I was being selfish, just my personal opinion, I hate being around people that smoke. I think it's gross. Like I said, cigars from time to time, good. Cigarette smoke, gross. I especially loathe people when I'm trying to get my coffee in the morning and they're spending 5 minutes at the register picking out their menthols and all their cigarettes for the day and buying all their lotto tickets and all that stuff. And I just want to buy a fucking coffee. So selfishly, I support this because I fucking hate people buying cigarettes in front of me at the gas station. It just takes so much goddamn time. But as a principled individual, I don't support this policy at all. This policy is completely idiotic. It is an unnecessary breach of freedoms. And I think the only logical outcome is that it's going to have more police interactions with low-income people. And I think that a lot of those people are going to end up being black people. And you're probably, I bet you within 2 years of this ban going into full effect, there is a black person who dies during a police altercation.
And they'll blame white supremacy.
Involving menthol cigarettes. I guarantee you within 2 years there will be. And they won't say a word about it.
So the government has no right to ban any flavor of any product. It's unconstitutional.
Oh, triumvirate. Oh, man. Man, that is...
Oh, if you require a photo ID for that,
black people wouldn't be able to buy them.
Wouldn't be able to buy them. That'd be perfect protection.
Or if you make them internet sales only, because buy the 6 black people don't know how to use
sales with a ID required. No black person will ever be able to buy cigarettes.
Just to give the context, okay, because this sounds super goddamn racist, right? So to give you guys context, I'm sure you know, but to give you guys context, Joe Biden said during the campaign trail that he doesn't think African Americans know how to use the internet. And then the Democrat Party policy, they're all of them say black people don't know how to get photo IDs because they're not smart enough to find the DMV. That is explicit Democrat talking points, is that black people are too stupid to get a photo ID and they're too stupid to use the internet. That's not Dyer and I saying that. That's the mainstream Democrat
it's us
policy.
Mocking them for having that policy.
But that sounds so racist, right? But if they actually believed that, which is actually worse. So it's actually worse that they don't believe that and that they would say those things, because that's just extra racist. That's just being cruel for no reason. But if they really did believe that black people didn't know how to get photo IDs or didn't know how to get the internet, then they would just say, you can still buy menthols, but you have to do it over the internet with a photo ID. That would solve the problem. What do you think's worse? Do you think it's worse that Joe Biden thinks that black people are too stupid to use the internet? Or do you think it's worse that he would not believe that, but that he would say that and try and get other people to believe that?
Well, you know what? I think that both have the same evil effect, but it's just one step higher in the evil intent to not actually believe it, but so it's not like, how everyone's like the hero of their own story. They think they're doing the right thing. Yeah. He doesn't even think he's doing the right thing.
Yeah. So I think it's worse that he doesn't believe that, but that he would try to get other people to say that, because if he believed that, that would just be him being wrong and ignorant, which isn't necessarily evil. It's just him being a dummy. Yeah. But I don't think that he believes that black people don't know how to use the internet, but he's actively trying to get other people to believe that black people are not able to use the internet, that is actively, knowingly evil. Yes. So bad. Same thing with the other Democrats and the photo IDs. I don't think that Don Lemon believes that black people don't know how to get a photo ID, but
he has an ID.
He's trying to get other people to think that black people are too stupid. That is really, really evil.
Yep. And you know what the other part of the story is? That they're saying that there should be community policing where there's no police officers and that this is going to be like the community itself doing vigilante justice. So who's going to enforce this?
No, so unironically, this is not an exaggeration. We tried community policing last year with Antifa and all the autonomous zones, and more black people died as a result of quote unquote community policing than black people died from regular policing.
So they want unaccountable random vigilantes to go around and kill people for having menthol cigarettes? Is that what the world they're trying to design here?
Yes.
Jeez. I don't understand how people vote for this.
Well, it's because they believe Joe Biden was successful in his evil aim of convincing people that black people are dumb. And
he's extra racist. So you've heard some of the sound bites he's had from earlier in his career, before it was unfashionable to be racist. Also, racist statements that were gaffes, I guess.
Nazi fags.
Oh my God, this is we are in trouble, guys.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
We're in a lot of trouble. I don't know what to tell you guys to do. We're in a lot of fucking trouble. I think though some of our earlier stories point to some of the issues. It is you have not even being hyperbolic anymore. You have unironic, literal, the top-ranking Republican living with a Google lobbyist, and the rest of the Republicans just watching it happen, not saying anything. That is step one of our problem, and it is the fact that is still going on in 2021. I'm not saying that we have dropped the ball, but there is certainly not enough people moving the ball forward the last decade to have made any significant progress. It might have looked like we made some progress, but we clearly did not, and we are still continuing to lose ground rather substantially. And I'm not I don't know. It's not going to be good, Dyer. Do you have any wise words of wisdom to console us with?
Not really. Then you have two options: keep fighting or give up. And I'm not someone who gives up, so I have leave for the country though.
Yeah, you can shut your goddamn mouth. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, like, people need to do this in America and rise up and all this stuff. And you're just like, I really wish I could be there. I just can't be there.
I'm just gonna develop a British accent and tell America what they should do. Americans should do while not actually there to be affected by it.
I'm definitely gonna be a watching for your accent to change, and I am going to absolutely destroy you if it ever happens. You will be removed from the show. There's a part of the contract is if Dyer ever develops a British accent, he loses all rights. He loses all rights to Direwolf Media.
Yeah, it was the British accent or wear pants while on the show, which I'm not allowed to do either.
Of course not. They're too restrictive. I can't think with pants on.
Yeah, because your brain's in your crotch, right?
Where's yours at?
It's in my head.
Oh. That sounds just inconvenient.
More than one head, that was the other head. Anyway, so that was fun. A little depressing. We'll see you guys on the next show. But it's been fun. Thank you very much, Darryl Fouch.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Have a good week.
White line got the joke. Jeez.
Yeah, hang on to your Bitcoins, guys. All right.